Chapter 792. Looking at Master Duan Li's message, Lin Yuan felt that Master Duan Li was talking about the same problem. However, Master Duan Li seemed to be more concerned about the severity of the problem. Lin Yuan did not reply to Master Duan Li's message immediately. Instead, he began to calculate how many radiance dollars he had. Master Duan Li became even more anxious when she received no reply to her message. Master Duan Li, I didn't know that the Reflection Sun King Lotus would require high-purity spirit chi to heal after splitting. I don't have the resources to compensate you. Can I work to pay off my debt? Lin Yuan had just finished calculating the amount of radiance dollars he had. After consolidating, he found that he only had 22.6 million radiance dollars at his disposal. Moreover, Lin Yuan had spent all the radiance dollars in Qing Wu's Diamond Fei storage box. Most of the 22.6 million radiance dollars had been earned by selling Feis. The remaining portion was a portion of the profits that Zhou Jiasen's store had given to Lin Yuan, and he had never used this amount of money. Lin Yuan could not help but smack his lips when he saw the amount of radiance dollars he could use. During this period, Lin Yuan had mostly been conducting bartering transactions, and he rarely used radiance dollars. Looking at the 22.6 million radiance dollars, Lin Yuan felt that he was still too poor. It seemed that he would not be using radiance dollars for the next transaction. After sorting out his current radiance dollars, Lin Yuan immediately saw Master Duan Li's message. Lin Yuan felt that Master Duan Li was not only bad, but also stupid. It seemed that Master Duan Li had discovered that the Reflection Sun King Lotus needed high-purity spirit chi to heal its damaged tissues when she had cut off the head. Even Lin Yuan, who had already split the Reflection Sun King Lotus into 99 seedlings, did not notice such a situation. It was because Lin Yuan only had high-purity spirit chi. If the Reflection Sun King Lotus needed low-purity spirit chi, it would be difficult for Lin Yuan. Since Master Duan Li wanted to work to pay off her debt, Lin Yuan had no reason to refuse. It was too much of a burden for Master Hong Shen to strengthen the angelfish of bliss alone. Master Duan Li could help. However, Master Duan Li was a Class 4 creation master. She was in such a miserable state. He actually had to work to pay off the debt as compensation. Lin Yuan replied to Master Duan Li, Deep Mountain Elder Lin, you can work to pay off your debt. Since you've learned your lesson, I won't hold you accountable for damaging the auction items. I hope you'll learn from it next time, or else I'll kick you out of the group. Master Duan Li's face darkened when she saw Lin Yuan's reply. After becoming a Class 4 creation master, it had been many years since Master Duan Li had been criticized like this. However, when he thought about Lin Yuan's unfathomable foundation and how he had indeed underestimated the Sun Reflection King Lotus recovery ability, he realized that this matter had indeed been caused. Master Duan Li replied, Master Duan Li, how about I work 10 hours a day for you for 2 months to pay off my debt? Is that okay? Lin Yuan looked at Master Duan Li's message and did some calculations. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, how long do you need to concoct a 3-star platinum potion? The platinum potion that Lin Yuan had asked Master Duan Li about was the spirit solution that Genius had concocted in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone to upgrade the Angelfish of Bliss from gold to platinum. Lin Yuan wanted Master Duan Li to enhance the Angelfish of Bliss that he had already upgraded to bronze/epic. Master Duan Li was not one of Lin Yuan's people. This was a serious matter, and Lin Yuan could not mail the Angelfish of Bliss to Master Duan Li. Moreover, Lin Yuan did not know if Master Duan Li was related to the Blissful Sea Tribe. If the Blissful Sea Tribe found out that he was breeding Angelfish of Bliss, they would immediately notice that he was buying up a large amount of Aurora pollen from the market. Therefore, Lin Yuan decided to break the taboo of creation masters and trade with Master Duan Li. Master Duan Li did not think much of Lin Yuan's message. At the same time, Master Duan Li wanted to show off her strength, so she replied in a slightly exaggerated manner. Master Duan Li, a regular Class 4 creation master would need 2.5 hours to concoct a platinum potion. I can concoct one in 2 hours. Lin Yuan looked at Master Duan Li's message and made some calculations. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, if that's the case, you just need to concoct 5 bottles of the platinum potion every day. That's 300 bottles in 2 months. One of the months is a big month. I'll give you a day to rest. You can choose which day to rest. Master Duanli almost choked on her breath at Lin Yuan's words. Master Duanli did not expect Lin Yuan to ask her to concoct a platinum potion that a Class 3 creation master could concoct. He was looking down on her as a Class 4 creation master. Master Duanli had exaggerated her concoction speed to begin with. If Master Duanli were to concoct a platinum water potion, it would probably take her the same amount of time as a normal Class 4 creation master. If she followed Lin Yuan's instructions, Master Duanli would have to work overtime for 2.5 hours every day. Moreover, concocting spirit potions was different from nurturing phase. One could slack off while nurturing phase. Concocting spirit potions was the spirit potion itself, and Lin Yuan had set a limit. Master Duanli could not slack off even if she wanted to. Master Duanli could not help but curse at Lin Yuan in her mind. What kind of freaking big month is a big month? And you're giving me a day off? It's almost February. February was only 28 days long. This was blatant exploitation. Just as Master Duanli was about to reject and suggest that she strengthen phase instead of concocting potions, Lin Yuan sent another message. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, if you have enough time, I'm willing to exchange for more than 300 bottles of platinum potion for 1 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl with the settled life pearl for every 30 bottles. Master Duanli couldn't bring herself to reject Lin Yuan's offer. In the end, Master Duanli could only grit her teeth and reply, okay. 30 bottles of platinum potion for 1 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl with the settled life pearl. This was a deal that Master Duanli could not refuse. Although the price Lin Yuan offered was the market price, such an item, which rarely appeared in the market, could be traded at the market price. That in itself was a great advantage for him. The second was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 793. Although Li Xian and Lin Yuan had not known each other for a long time, he could feel Lin Yuan's introverted and low-key nature in the process of getting along. After Lin Yuan met Li Xian and Long Tao, he had never mentioned any topic about his identity. When Lin Yuan was pouring the 3 treasures tea, he mentioned that the pine needles, plum blossoms, and pine nuts were produced in the Leaning Moon Mountain. He was emphasizing his identity to the Grand Elder beside him. Lin Yuan was undoubtedly emphasizing his identity to help him. At the same time, the order in which Lin Yuan poured the tea could be said to be giving him enough face. At that moment, Li Xian simply did not know how to thank Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had actually done this because he had seen the change in the elder's gaze toward Li Xian. Thus, he had decided to exaggerate and help Li Xian. Lin Yuan, who had lived 2 lives, was very clear about the ways of the world. He just needed one look to understand the meaning in the elder's gaze. If Li Xian could obtain more speaking rights in the Li Yunavian niche because of his help, it would undoubtedly pull up his relationship with Li Xian. On the contrary, if Lin Yuan and Li Xian were on good terms, Li Xian would have more speaking rights in the Li family. When Lin Yuan really needed Li Yunavian niche's help, he would also be able to get more help. The various top factions had built luxurious and imposing mansions in the royal capital. Usually, these mansions were empty. Only when the top faction's direct descendants came to the royal capital for matters would these mansions be occupied. At that moment, 9 majestic dragon roars suddenly echoed above the Long family's coiled Dragon Valley's mansion. 9 nearly 100-meter-long scarlet gold flood dragons soared into the sky. However, these 9 nearly 100-meter-long scarlet gold flood dragons were different from ordinary flood dragon phase. These 9 scarlet gold flood dragons had bone shields that only dinosaur species phase would have. The 9 scarlet gold flood dragons' bodies were not as light and elegant as flood dragon phase. Instead, they were full of a majestic and thick feeling. The scarlet gold flood dragons' heads looked very similar to the dinosaur species phase heads, the blood Tyrannosaurus heads. The 9 massive heads had dozens of sharp dragon teeth. Not only did their necks not have elegant manes, but they also had a pile of sinister and ostentatious bone spurs. These 9 dragon species phase, which resembled WRM species phase but had dinosaur species phase, were the scarlet gold soaring dragons that the Long family's coiled Dragon Valley had specially nurtured. Among ancient dragon species phase, purebred WIRM species phase and purebred dinosaur species phase were qualified to metamorphose into dragon species phase. Due to the mutual restriction and conflict between the two bloodlines, it was very difficult for the flood dragon and dinosaur hybrids to improve their bloodlines. However, the red-gold soaring dragon bred by the Long family was a surprise. The scarlet-gold soaring dragon had the ferocity of the dinosaur bloodline and the agility of the flood dragon bloodline. Even if it was a hybrid bloodline, it still had the ability to become a main dragon species fae. At this moment, among the 9 scarlet-gold soaring dragons in the sky, 3 of them were even more beautiful and majestic. They were already in the process of transforming into main dragon species. The 9 scarlet gold dragons were connected to a majestic pavilion by chains. This majestic golden pavilion was carved with countless dragon-shaped fays. The golden pavilion was pulled by the 9 scarlet gold dragons and galloped into the distance. The combination of the golden pavilion and the 9 scarlet gold dragons was the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley's most famous soaring dragon carriage. Normally, it would only be used when the Long family visited the Coiled Dragon Valley's important figures. The number of scarlet gold dragons pulling the soaring dragon carriage often represented the Long family's etiquette. When the Long family visited the Moon Empress Radiant Moon Palace, the Chef Supreme's kitchen fragrance residence, and the Bamboo Monarch's purple bamboo garden, they would let 10 scarlet gold dragons pull the carriage together. Even when the Long family visited other pinnacle factions that they were not familiar with, they would only use 7 scarlet gold dragons. The 8 scarlet gold dragons would only be used when the Long family visited a few pinnacle factions or in-laws that they were very familiar with. Even though the 9 scarlet gold dragons pulling the carriage were 1 less than the top 10, it was the first time in the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley that 9 scarlet gold dragons pulled the soaring dragon carriage. The Long family's soaring dragon carriage had been showing off along the way, attracting the attention of many pinnacle factions that had come to the royal capital to attend the Nyx assembly. On one hand, these pinnacle factions were surprised that the Long family would actually use 9 dragons to pull the carriage. On the other hand, they were also curious about who the Long family was visiting with such a lineup. Lin Yuan was currently chatting with Li Xian and Li Yun Niao and I. Li Xian and Li Yun Niao and I were not in a hurry to say the purpose of this trip. In their opinion, the Long family would definitely talk about cooperation and transactions when they arrived, and it would not be too late to talk about it in detail then. Not long after, 9 dragon roars sounded outside Lin Yuan's manor. The mother of Bloodbath left the manor in a flash and arrived at the manor's entrance. The mother of Bloodbath looked at the 9 scarlet gold dragons pulling the carriage and felt the majestic blood energy within them. It only felt that the 9 spicy strips in front of it looked very delicious. The mother of Bloodbath walked in with Long Tao and his father, Long Tuesday. As soon as Long Tu saw Lin Yuan, before Lin Yuan could take the initiative to speak, he had already stepped to Lin Yuan's side and extended his hand. "Little friend, thank you for giving Tao, the law crystal. Not only did that law crystal help me a lot, but it also solved a problem that had been bothering me for many years." Long Tao walked in with a smile on his face, but when he heard what his father, Long Tu, said to Lin Yuan, he looked embarrassed. In the past, he had only heard of sons deceiving their fathers. Since when did fathers start to deceive their sons? If his father called Lin Yuan a little friend and Lin Yuan agreed, wouldn't he have to call Lin Yuan uncle? Long Tao imagined the scene of himself calling Lin Yuan uncle and only felt that his entire body was about to wither. Lin Yuan was also stunned by Long Tu's little friend, and hurriedly helped Long Tu to sit on the sofa. "I feel very happy to be able to help Uncle Long." After saying that, Lin Yuan gave a look to Long Tao, who was not far away. Long Tao hurriedly walked over and sat beside Long Tuesday. He pulled back Long Tu's extended hand and said with some annoyance, "Dad, do you think you're too old to call Lin Yuan a little friend? Dad, do you think you are too old to call young friend Lin Yuan? Do you want to be my brother?" Long Tu pulled his hand out of Long Tao's hand and rolled his eyes at him. "What old? Your mother doesn't even think I'm old." Lin Yuan poured 2 cups of 3 treasures tea for Long Tao and Long Tuesday. Li Xian looked at Long Tao and Long Tu from the side and could not help but feel envious. Long Tao's words could be considered very overstepping his boundaries, but Long Tu did not have the slightest intention of blaming Long Tao. This showed Long Tu's love for Long Tao. In the Li family, although Li Yunyao was the oldest direct descendant and his mother took good care of him, Li Xian did not seem to have felt much love from his father. In his memory, Li Xian did not seem to have felt much love from his father. The first was even more. End of this chapter. Chapter 794. However, Lin Yuan was not able to collect the celestial river stones as he wished. It was not that no one in the group was willing to trade celestial river stones with Lin Yuan. It was because the person who traded celestial river stones with Lin Yuan could only provide around 50 caddies of celestial river stones. The rest of the group members could only provide a few dozen caddies of celestial river stones. Lin Yuan planned to use the Cloud Dream Lake's Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls to exchange for 3 tons of celestial river stones. As for the amount provided by the group members, Lin Yuan could not use the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls to pay. Even if Lin Yuan was willing to crush the Cloud Dream Lake Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls into powder for the trade, the group members who provided the celestial river stones would not agree. When the purity of the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls was above 95%, their effects were not much different. The reason why the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls were so sought after was because of the beauty of the pearls. If they were crushed into powder, the beauty of the pearls would be destroyed. It would cause the originally beautiful pearls to lose their value. Moreover, Lin Yuan needed the celestial river stones to pave the bottom of the hidden Flood Dragon Lake. The weight of the celestial river stones was even more than the weight of the revival soil and the wood-nurturing clay combined. With such a huge amount of celestial river stones, Lin Yuan's best method was to find a faction to complete the trade in one go. This made Lin Yuan suddenly think of the veteran faction, the Sea of Bliss. The Sea of Bliss's Star Web private faction territory was paved with celestial river stones. However, the celestial river stones used by the Sea of Bliss to pave the ground did not meet Lin Yuan's requirements. The purity of the celestial river stones needed to at least reach the level of the Sea of Bliss's Immortal Bliss plaque. The Immortal Bliss plaque was a kind of consumable for the Sea of Bliss. If others bought the Sea of Bliss's Immortal Bliss plaque as a ticket to buy the Angelfish of Bliss, it was equivalent to buying a plaque made of celestial river stones at a price several times the market price. Therefore, the veteran faction, the Sea of Bliss, must have accumulated a lot of celestial river stones. Lin Yuan calculated in his heart. Since he had already reached an agreement with the Blissful Sea tribe, since he had reached an agreement with the Sea of Bliss, the Sea of Bliss wouldn't reject him, right? However, Lin Yuan did not know that the entire Sea of Bliss had become anxious because of the agreement with Sky City. At this time, in the southern part of Still Flow City, in a mansion built by the sea, a man with a somewhat feminine face but a long beard slammed the table 5 times and said angrily, "You're going too far. The Miao family's beast creation garden is too overbearing." Beside this somewhat feminine man with a hairy beard sat a young man with slender eyes and thin lips. Seeing that his father was so angry, the thin-lipped youth glared fiercely at the blue-robed man kneeling by his feet. The blue-robed man, Feng Qi, lowered his head, feeling extremely wronged. "I was the one who asked my master about the collaboration with Sky City. The cooperation between the Blissful Sea Tribe and Sky City would greatly strengthen the Blissful Sea Tribe." At that time, Master and Young Master were overjoyed, and they made the decision to cooperate with Sky City at all costs. However, when he returned in triumph, the celebration banquet was only halfway through, and the old master immediately turned hostile when he received the news. Sky City and the Beast Creation Garden had a conflict because of the Sun family's due Immortal Garden. This had only happened after they had collaborated with the Blissful Ocean Tribe. Who would have thought of such a situation? In Feng Qi's eyes, compared to the suppression of the Blissful Ocean Tribe by the Beast Creation Garden, Sky City was more helpful. However, in the eyes of the Blissful Ocean Tribe, Sky City was more helpful to the Blissful Ocean Tribe. However, this matter concerned the internal decisions of the Blissful Ocean Tribe, so Feng Qi couldn't interfere at all. The thin-lipped youth glared at Feng Qi, then looked at his father. After thinking for a while, he spoke. "Father, The Beast Creation Garden unilaterally cut off a few collaborations with the Blissful Ocean Tribe. It's extremely overbearing. I remember that many of the collaborations between the Blissful Ocean Tribe and the Beast Creation Garden were guaranteed and signed by the spirit guards. The thin-lipped youth didn't continue. However, the thin-lipped youth's words made the feminine middle-aged man's expression change. The feminine middle-aged man looked at the thin-lipped youth and said, "Hi Tao, you've grown up too. Since you have an opinion, why don't you tell me in detail?" The thin-lipped youth called Hai Tao heard his father's words, and a scheming glint flashed in his eyes. Our Blissful Ocean Tribe relied on the angelfish of Blissful to grow from a rising faction to a veteran faction. After growing into a veteran faction, apart from nurturing the angelfish of Blissful, our Blissful Ocean Tribe also nurtured some other aquatic phase. By relying on the other aquatic phase, the Blissful Ocean Tribe slowly became an elite veteran faction. However, our Blissful Ocean Tribe's foundation is ultimately the angelfish of Blissful. We are able to stand tall because we have a monopoly on the angelfish of Blissful business. Even if there are examples of angelfish of Blissful being sold in the market, those are wild angelfish of Blissful that were caught by chance. Even if those wild angelfish of Blissful that were caught coincidentally laid eggs during the flood season, without our Blissful Ocean Tribe's special elixirs, no one will be able to hatch the eggs into young fish. For the past few years, our Blissful Ocean Tribe's development has been limited by the lack of creation master resources. It can be said that our creation masters have spent all their efforts on nurturing the angelfish of Blissful. As a result, our Blissful Ocean Tribe's other aquatic phase have to rely on the resources of other factions' creation masters. For this, we have to fork out a huge sum of resources every year. This time, the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden suppression of the Blissful Ocean Tribe is the same as cutting off our other aquatic phase business. Even if we cut off our relationship with Sky City now, given the Meow family's overbearing nature, they will definitely continue to vent their anger on us. It will not be as smooth as before in terms of cooperation. What I mean is to tighten the relationship between Sky City and our Blissful Ocean Tribe. After that, we will cut off our other phase business and focus on nurturing the angelfish of Blissful. If we seize this opportunity and operate for over a decade, our Blissful Ocean Tribe might even qualify to become a top faction. The Meow family will definitely not expect our Blissful Ocean Tribe to have such a plan. When the time comes, we will take the contract with the Meow family to the spirit guards to settle it. The Meow family will have to give our Blissful Ocean Tribe a huge sum of compensation. With this compensation, it will be the Meow family paying for our Blissful Ocean Tribe's business transformation. No matter how overbearing the Meow family is, they will never be as overbearing as the spirit guards. The first one was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 795. Qi Wangyang was expressionless when he heard Qi Haitao's words. However, when he heard Qi Haitao talk about the Ocean of Bliss business transformation, he could not help but frown. Especially when he heard Qi Haitao mention becoming a top-notch faction. Qi Wangyang's eyes were filled with an astonishing ambition. Qi Wangyang stroked his beard and fell into deep thought. Any veteran faction would have the dream of becoming a top-notch faction. The Ocean of Bliss did not have such a foundation in the past. However, after hearing his son's words, Qi Wangyang felt that this was indeed an opportunity. Unlike Qi Haitao, who was fearless, Qi Wangyang, who was the leader of the Ocean of Bliss veteran faction, understood the terror of a top-notch faction. If the Ocean of Bliss did not become a top-notch faction after the spirit guards went to the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden, they would have to be wary of the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden. If the Ocean of Bliss did not become a top-notch faction, they would have to be wary of being bitten to death by the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden. After pondering for a moment, Qi Wangyang spoke conservatively. Haitao, bring Feng Qi to Sky City personally and see if we can complete a deal as soon as possible. As for the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden, we will wait until the first deal with Sky City before making further plans. If the cooperation with Sky City can really push the Ocean of Bliss to a higher level, it won't be too late to let the Meow family's Beast Creation Garden pay for our business transformation. Upon hearing his father's words, Qi Haitao knew that Qi Wangyang had agreed with his idea. However, his father had always been very conservative and did not want to easily stand on the opposite side of the beast creation garden. After saying that, Qi Wangyang stood up from his seat. He walked to Feng Qi, who was kneeling on the ground, and helped Feng Qi up to comfort him. Feng Qi felt as though his heart had been on a roller coaster when he was helped up from the ground. After experiencing so many ups and downs in a day, Feng Qi's heart could not take it anymore. Moreover, as he looked at Qi Wangyang, who was comforting him gently, Feng Qi felt abnormally terrified. Compared to being strict, being moody was often more frightening. After completing the deal with Wang Fuxiang and getting rid of top student, he was ready to leave the group chat. After all, Lin Yuan had achieved his goal. Before leaving, he pondered for a moment. Then, another group announcement was made. Group announcement. From now on, group members who have entered the group are not allowed to reveal any information other than the group welfare auction. Those who are found to have done so will be kicked out of the group. After sending this group announcement, he went straight to his Star Web private force territory. He had also set up authority inside and outside the faction. People and factions that were not invited by Sky City could only enter Sky City's private faction territory from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day to snatch the fate letter. For the rest of the time, Sky City's private territory was not open to the public. Now that the functions of the Sky Castle had been announced, it was bound to attract a large number of onlookers. Moreover, Lin Yuan did not care about lists like the visitor's roll at all. So many things had happened in the territory of Sky City's private forces today, including the conflict between two top forces. Sky Castle should be able to firmly occupy the hot list tomorrow. When you had not returned yet, and there was no one to manage the private territory of Sky City. In addition, Sky City was taking a mysterious route, and Lin Yuan did not want the inside and outside of Sky City to be as lively as a vegetable market. Lin Yuan had just issued such a harsh announcement in the group because he realized that he had appeared in the purchase with no loss store wearing a strange mask. He was waiting for Sky City's popularity to explode. If someone with ulterior motives in the group found out and leaked it, very soon, people would guess the relationship between purchase with no loss store and Sky City. Fortunately, not many group members had seen Lin Yuan's image. After today, Lin Yuan did not plan to often walk around in the private faction territory. Lin Yuan thought that his identity should not be leaked in a short time. Lin Yuan was not afraid that someone would associate Sky City with the purchase with no loss store. In fact, even if no one contacted him, Lin Yuan would integrate the network established by Sky City and purchase with no loss store after a period of time. However, these 2 months were not a good opportunity because Lin Yuan was still plotting against the Blissful Sea clan. A faction's reputation and strength did not only look at the resources it controlled. This faction's reputation was often piled up by major events. The Blissful Sea clan was the stepping stone for Sky City's first major event. Lin Yuan checked the news in the private faction territory and was about to contact the blue-robed man, Feng Qi, who had finalized the cooperation with him. He found that Feng Qi had sent him several messages. Feng Qi, are you there? I want to talk to Sky City in detail about the future cooperation. Feng Qi, we, the Blissful Sea clan, want to complete the first deal with Sky City as soon as possible. I wonder how many pregnant angelfish of Blissful you can raise from flawless to epic at one time? Feng Qi, if it's convenient, let's meet in real life and talk face to face. From the message, Lin Yuan could feel that Feng Qi was very anxious. Otherwise, Feng Qi would not have sent a message every 10 minutes at night. The Blissful Sea clan was anxious to talk to him about cooperation, and Lin Yuan happened to want to get some celestial river stones from them. The Blissful Sea clan's initiative saved Lin Yuan the trouble of contacting them. Lin Yuan replied, I'm in the territory. I'm in the territory. We can talk now. As soon as Lin Yuan sent the message, he got a reply from Feng Qi. Feng Qi of the Blissful Ocean Tribe. Great. We'll go now. Lin Yuan was slightly startled when he saw Feng Qi's reply. Then the corners of his mouth curled up. It seemed that the Blissful Sea clan's real people were coming. At that moment, Lin Yuan received another message from Feng Qi. Feng Qi, Our young family master is blocked outside Sky City's territory. Please grant him permission. Lin Yuan immediately granted permission to the Blissful Sea clan's young family master. At the same time, Feng Qi's title of young family master piqued Lin Yuan's interest. If a faction's direct descendants had many names and were qualified to inherit the faction, they could only be called young master or young lady. Therefore, these direct descendants could only be called young master or young lady. Gao Feng, the only direct descendant of the younger generation, would be called young family master when he was addressed by the Gao family's servants. It seemed that the Blissful Sea clan's situation was somewhat similar to the Gao family's. There was only one direct descendant in the younger generation. Soon, Lin Yuan saw a short man with long eyes and thin lips beside the blue-robed Feng Qi. Lin Yuan sat in his seat and did not take the initiative to greet the Blissful Sea clan's young family master. When Qi Haitao, who came with Feng Qi, saw that Sky City's interior was decorated with hundreds of bronze/epic phase and the bronze/legend oath lily of the valley on the table, his eyes lit up. The second was even more. End of this chapter. Chapter 796. Li Yunyo couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air when he heard this. 600 golden lotus brocades in a month, what kind of extravagance was that? However, Black Cloud Bird Grand Elder started to worry. According to the previous exchange price of the golden lotus brocade, one golden lotus brocade could be exchanged for every 30 law origin crystals. In that case, he and the Coiling Dragon Valley would have to fork out 18,000 law's origin crystals for the 600 golden lotus stalks. Even if law origin crystals were useless to him, tier 7-dimensional creatures weren't that easy to kill. The 600 golden lotus brocade seedlings that Lin Yuan had mentioned earlier would be shared between him and the Coiling Dragon Valley. The Coiling Dragon Valley had plenty of creation master resources, so they would naturally get a bigger share of the golden lotus brocade seedlings. Coiling Dragon Valley would probably have to go through a lot of trouble to come up with so many law origin crystals. But very quickly, First Elder Li Yunyao felt that his face had been slapped by Long Tuesday. Li Yunyao and I Grand Elder only heard Long Tu's words. Based on the previous deal of 30 law origin crystals, our Long family should be able to take all 600 golden lotus brocade stalks. The extreme daylight tyrannosauruses that our Long family nurtures need to consume large amounts of high-grade dimensional life forms' flesh every day. Thus, our Long family has joined forces with the 5 Thearch's mercenary corps to control 8 Class 4-dimensional rifts all year round. We can clear out quite a lot of law origin crystals every year. Over the past 100 years, our Long family still has quite a lot of law origin crystals in storage. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he heard that. At that moment, Elder Li Yunyo wrinkled his nose and said, "That's right. Our Dawn Cloud Birdcage can eat a little of these 600 golden lotus stalks, but we must eat at least 200 of them. Our Li family should be able to gather 6,000 law origin crystals." As he said this, the great elder of Li Yunyao had already decided to give the 4th elder, who was in charge of Li Yunyao warehouse, a good beating. Back then, if 4th elder hadn't felt that the law origin crystals were useless and had used a large portion of them in exchange for cash flow to expand the flying species' Fey breeding base, 4th elder wouldn't have been able to do so. It would not be a problem for the Li clan to consume 300 golden lotus seedlings. However, Li Yunyao great elder also understood that taking 200 golden lotus brocade stalks was already Li Yunyao limit. It wasn't that the Aurora Cloud Avian Cage couldn't obtain law origin crystals from the outside world. If it wanted law origin crystals, it could use rare resources that only the Aurora Cloud Avian Cage had to exchange with other factions. It was just that Li Yunyao had always been attached to the Long family in the early years, and had relied on the Long family's help to become a top force 40 years ago. Therefore, in this matter, Li Yun and Niao could only take a small lead. Long Tu looked at Li Yunyo Grand Elder and laughed. Of course, 200 golden lotus brocade stalks will do. If you don't have enough law origin crystals, our Long family can lend you some. When Lin Yuan sensed the way the Li family's Grand Elder and Long Tu handled things, he could not help but have a higher opinion of Li Yun Bird Niche and the Coiling Dragon Valley. Lin Yuan's main purpose of sharing 600 pots of golden lotus brocade plants with the Coiling Dragon Valley and Li Yun Bird Niche was to see how the two factions handled things. What Lin Yuan saw was a person who was willing to give in and a promise to give back very quickly after the other party was willing to give in. Even if Lin Yuan's identity as the Moon Empress disciple could be used as an absolute guarantee when dealing with any top faction, he would not be taken advantage of by the other faction. However, it was undoubtedly much more comfortable to work with a faction that knew when to advance and retreat and was willing to give. Lin Yuan was well aware of the zither's production capacity. The zither could produce 24 to 25 pots of golden lotus brocade plants in a day. Its actual production capacity was 750 pots in a month, far exceeding the number that Lin Yuan had given to the Coiling Dragon Valley and Li Yun Bird Niche. Based on Long Tu's words, if he released more golden lotus brocade pearls, the Coiling Dragon Valley would be very willing to take it. When the transaction was completed a month later, 16,000 law origin crystals would be in his account. In addition to obtaining a few worlds derived from laws, his sacred source life form, the Sacred Sword Embracing Queen, would definitely have a qualitative leap in star class. It was already a done deal that it would become a 2-star Sacred Sword Embracing Queen. It was very likely that the Queen would become a 3-star Sacred Sword and obtain new functions. After this transaction, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden would probably not be able to sleep peacefully no matter what. Once the Long family had a large number of golden lotus brocade pearls, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden's fundamental functions would be cruelly suppressed by the Coiling Dragon Valley. It was equivalent to directly shaking the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden's foundation and influence. In addition, the Miao family's Beast Creation Garden's coveting of the Sun family's Do Immortal Nursery would certainly not get what they wanted. At that time, the Miao family's Do Immortal Nursery and the Long family's Coiling Dragon Valley would probably not have the time to find trouble with Sky City. A month later, with the injection of 18,000 law origin crystals, Sky City's top combat power would directly usher in a qualitative change. There was no longer any suspense for Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath to become creation breeds. There was even a large number of law origin crystals that could allow the Mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer to break through from the first tribulation of creation to the second tribulation or even the third tribulation. After talking about the Golden Lotus Brocade, Long Tu and Li Yun Bird Niche had no intention of leaving. Lin Yuan knew that they were waiting for the other party or him to take the initiative to mention the law origin crystals that contained pure power of law. Unlike the Golden Lotus Brocade pearls, Lin Yuan did not intend to take the initiative to mention the law origin crystals. This time, Lin Yuan had obtained an unprecedented harvest from the Golden Lotus Brocade pearls transaction. As long as he continued to update the Golden Lotus Brocade pearls versions, Lin Yuan's money and resources would be endless. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan no longer needed to rely on law origin crystals to obtain resources for himself. He had decided to put more law origin crystals for internal use and leave them for his true allies. After Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath became creation breeds, there would definitely be a large number of law origin crystals in Lin Yuan's hands. However, as his Chu Ci, Lu Jie, Wen Yu, Duan He, Master Hong Shen, and even Hu Quan's strength increased, the number of law origin crystals would not be enough no matter how many he prepared. When he reached Myth 3, the phase that could use law origin crystals were Genius, Chimey, Red Thorn, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee, the Ethereal Jellyfish, the Source Sand, the Jasmine Lily, Little Black, the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly, Gray, Silver Splendor, the Zither, and the Unhatched Floating Island Whale. After calculating, there were already as many as 12 units. As Morbius grade increased, he would be able to spirit lock on more phase. Now, Lin Yuan could also use his spiritual energy to contract another Fae. After the Cinnabar Osmanthus Haworthia ripened, Lin Yuan's spiritual energy would increase, and he could also increase the number of contracts. In this way, just his consumption of law origin crystals gave Lin Yuan an incomparable headache. The first one was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 797. A vast expanse of land was densely covered with jagged rocks. Most of these rocks were already dry and cracked, as if they hadn't been soaked by rain for hundreds of years. A gust of wind whistled past, and the violent gale smashed a jagged rock into smithereens like a hammer. The gale swept the crushed rocks into other rocks, and soon, a storm of crushed rocks was set off. The surface world was barren, but the underground world contained a different kind of vitality. However, no matter how rich the vitality of this underground world was, there was no sun. Fortunately, some of the ores could emit a faint glow, so the underground world didn't look completely gray. At this moment, a continuous series of chiseling sounds came from a mine in the underground world. There was also a sky full of curses, and from time to time, miserable howls and begging for mercy could be heard. But every time the miserable howls and begging for mercy sounded, the curses would become even more intense. The sound of a whip suddenly sounded in the sky full of curses, and the sudden sound of the whip actually suppressed the continuous chiseling sounds in an instant. Suddenly, a thin and weak youth in ragged clothes ran out of the mine, his body dripping with whip marks. Behind the youth, a fat man with a black panther on his leash chased after him. The fat man who chased out of the mine did not continue to chase, but looked at the thin and weak youth mockingly. At this moment, the youth had already lined up in front of a protective belt made of charcoal fire that was nearly 4 meters long. The youth glanced at the fat man and the black panther behind him, and gritted his teeth as he stepped into the charcoal fire with his bare feet. Enduring the burning of the charcoal fire, he ran as fast as he could out of the protective belt formed by the charcoal fire. Just as the young man was about to run across the 4-meter-long charcoal protective belt with his burnt feet, a roar and a wind blade with sharp claws slashed at the young man's back. The youth fell directly into the rapid and cold underground river outside the protective belt. The fat man looked at the youth who fell into the underground river and cursed angrily. "Bad luck. Cave Shadow Panther, why didn't you aim your claws a little more? Next time, I'll definitely hit these bastards' brains." The underground river had washed the youth to a protruding rock pillar at some point. The injury on the young man's back slammed into the rock pillar, causing the young man to wake up in pain. Seizing this opportunity, the young man hugged the rock pillar in the turbulent underground river and climbed up the rock pillar with all his might. After climbing to the top of the rock pillar, the young man directly fell onto the rock wall that was less than a square meter from the top of the rock pillar. The claw wounds on his back and the soles of his feet burned all the way to his calves, making the young man feel as though his soul was about to shatter. The night in the underground world was unusually cold, not to mention that the young man had been soaking in the ice-cold underground river for a long time. This caused the young man's body and injuries to become numb in the cold. The youth stretched out his palms, looked at his own hands, and used all his strength to clench them tightly. A pitch-black, blade-like willpower condensed on the youth's fists as he murmured softly, "I, Bei Su, want revenge. I want to avenge Dad, Mom, and Sis. If I can take revenge, I, Bei Su, am willing to exchange everything for it." At this point, the youth named Bei Su suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Tears rolled down from the young man's reddened eyes. He was born as a human, but in the end, it seemed that everything he had was nothing more than zero. In the cold and darkness, the young man's consciousness gradually weakened. In the end, he closed his eyes heavily. In an extremely luxurious palace, a young girl was flipping through a book. However, while flipping through the book, the young girl's eyes weren't fixed on the book, but were covered by a white ribbon. The young girl straightened her chest, her head was facing forward, and her bearing was unusually elegant. The young girl's fingers stroked the thick book on her thigh, but this book was different from ordinary books. Ordinary books had lines of beautiful words written on flat paper. However, the pages of the book that the young girl was stroking were made of wooden planks, and every word on the planks was carved into protrusions. The young girl carefully stroked the pages made of wooden planks. Perhaps because she had been stroking it for a long time, the words that were stroked by the young girl were dyed a faint red. At this moment, a woman wearing a black and white maid costume walked in and said respectfully with a soft voice, "Miss, Master and Madam have invited you to a banquet." The woman in the black and white maid costume bowed, but didn't get a response for a long time. The woman in the maid costume raised her head and walked to the side of the young girl with the white ribbon over her eyes. The maid knew that the young miss was engrossed in reading again. When the maid walked to the side of the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes, she saw the blood on the pages. The maid immediately showed a distressed expression. The maid gently took the special book from the hands of the young girl with the white ribbon over her eyes. She hurriedly untied a few translucent bandages from her wrist and wrapped them around the fingers of the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes. She said, "Miss, you promised Cece that you wouldn't read for more than 2 hours in the future." Fortunately, Cece prepared healing bandages with hemostasis in advance. Otherwise, Master and Madam would be distressed when they see Miss Fingers during dinner. The young girl with the ribbon over her eyes allowed the maid named Cece to bandage her fingers, and then used her palm to gently touch the maid's eyebrows. After confirming that it was someone else, the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes changed her calm expression and changed into a cheerful tone. "Cece, I read in the book that the jade water dolphin is blue, and the iris curse butterfly is purple. Mother said that the sky is blue, and the amethyst is purple." At this point, the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes was a little disappointed. "But Mother didn't tell me what color blue is and what color purple is." When Cece heard the words of the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes, she felt an indescribable sourness and heartache in her heart. For someone who was blind, she had never seen the blue of the sky and the purple of the amethyst. She didn't even have the concept of color. Therefore, no matter how she described it, it was just empty talk. Even if Master and Madam gave the best to the young miss still had the talent to become a spirit chi professional. The young miss had even comprehended 2 willpower runes at a young age. However, she still couldn't see. The contracted fae had become a burden instead. The maid Cece racked her brains for a long time, and her eyes suddenly lit up. "Miss, you can try to think of it this way. Blue is what makes you happy, and purple is what surprises you." When the young girl with the ribbon over her eyes heard that, she let out a light laugh. The young girl's laughter was like a lark, and it made people feel as though their bodies and minds were healed. "Then Cece must be blue, and the strawberry jam that I ate last night must be purple. Every time I think of Cece, I feel very happy. The strawberry jam that Mother made last night made me feel very surprised." At this point, the young girl with the ribbon over her face reached out her hand. She used her palm to cover her eyes and said softly in her heart, "I want to see the color of the sky, the amethyst, the jade water dolphin, the iris curse butterfly, and the strawberry jam that Mother made. I also want to see Father, Mother, Grandpa Butler, and Cece. If it can be realized, I, Ian Lin, am willing to exchange everything for it. The first time was even better." End of this chapter. Chapter 798. The Divine Wood Federation that Lin Yuan was going to next had mostly plant species and insect species phase. Plant species phase and insect species phase occupied almost 90% of the Divine Wood Federation's phase species. Most plant-type phase and insect-type phase had the ability to release toxins. With the Myth 3 poison-type law crystal, it would be safer for him to train in the Divine Wood Federation. By the time the princess used the Law Source Crystal to upgrade the Myth 3 poison law into a poison world, ordinary poisons would probably have no effect on him. At that time, he could even be said to be truly immune to poison. After saying his bottom line, Long Tu stared firmly into Lin Yuan's eyes. After watching for a long time, he found that Lin Yuan's eyes did not have the slightest ripple after hearing about Myth 3's poison-type law crystal. Long Tu could not help but hold his breath. However, Long Tu did not intend to increase the stakes again. As the head of the Coiling Dragon Valley, he had already set the bottom line during the transaction, so there was no reason for him to push the bottom line further. Although the bottom line couldn't be pushed back, the Long family had many things that could replace Suzerain/Myth 3 poison-type law crystals. Long Tu spoke again. Apart from Myth 3's poison law crystals, Myth 2's dark law crystals and water law crystals are also fine. The dark element law crystal at the peak of Myth 2 is gray shadow law, and the water element law crystal is flow speed law. Actually, the poison law of that Myth 3 poison law crystal is very good. It's the fierce poison law of the poison law. As long as it isn't a myth-breed poison-type fae that relies on spiritual toxins to harm the target, most of them can be absorbed. Speaking of this, Long Tu suddenly felt a little silly. Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress disciple and could easily take out 3 law crystals. Even if Lin Yuan really had a poison-type fae, he would consume the law crystal and not choose to devour a myth 3 vicious poison law crystal. On the other hand, even if the vicious poison law was very popular among poison-type faes, it still couldn't change the fact that it was a minority. When Lin Yuan heard Long Tu say that the myth 3 poison-type law crystal contained the ferocious poison law, even though he was still suppressing his joy, the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up slightly. When Long Tu mentioned the myth 3 poison-type law crystal, Lin Yuan was also afraid of the poison-type direction. Even if unilateral poison-type laws like the acid poison law, the blood poison law, and the decay poison law were useful to him, they did not reach the standard for Princess to use the energy absorbed from the law origin crystal to enhance them. This was because the enhancement of these Kalingzi's poison laws could only enhance one aspect of Lin Yuan's poison resistance. However, it could not increase his poison resistance as a whole. However, the ferocious poison law was different. The ferocious poison law encompassed the vast majority of poison types. He had upgraded the vicious poison law, which could make him immune to acid poison, blood poison, decay poison, and more poisons. Even if the immunity to specific poisons was not as good as the effect of specific poison-type laws, it was enough for him. As for the Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 2 Dark Element Grey Shadow Law and the Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 2 Water Flow Law, he did not take them to heart at all. He now had the Dark Death Law, which had top-notch lethality, and the Dead Dream Law, which had a good control effect. He naturally did not need the Grey Shadow Law, which was far inferior to the Dark Death Law and the Dead Dream Law. In his opinion, it was enough for him to increase 2 law runes in his darkness attribute. Princess Duanhe's skirt wasn't lacking in water element laws. After all, Duanhe had destroyed the horned gray whale's nest. Lin Yuan absorbed 3 piles of law crystal fragments from different horned gray whales at once. The horned gray whale's law crystal was incomplete and could not be enhanced by Lin Yuan. However, the water element flow speed law was also not worth it for Lin Yuan to improve after absorbing it. The flow speed law wore the skin of the water element law, but in the end, it represented speed in water. As long as he did not go into the sea to escape or track the enemy in the future, this flow speed law would not be of any use. Therefore, Lin Yuan gave up decisively. Lin Yuan said directly to Long Tuesday, "I'll choose the Suzerain/Myth 3 Law Crystal." After saying that, he handed a law crystal to Long Tuesday. Long Tu took the law crystal and said solemnly after taking a few glances at it, "I will immediately send someone from Ascending Dragon City to send you the poison-type law crystals and the 17 pots of golden lotus brocade pearls. In the following month, the Coiling Dragon Valley will trade a total of 400 pots of golden lotus brocade stalks. That's a total of 12,000 law origin crystals. The Coiling Dragon Valley can bring out 12,000 law's origin crystals now. I'll get someone to bring them over in the next 2 days." After trading for a law crystal, Long Tu decided to express his desire to be on good terms with Lin Yuan. Even if Long Tu was not sure what Lin Yuan needed so many law origin crystals for, as the Moon Empress disciple, Lin Yuan would not cheat the Coiled Dragon Valley of law origin crystals. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan raised his eyes and looked at Long Tuesday. After looking at each other for a moment, Lin Yuan's face revealed a sunny smile. Lin Yuan said softly, "Uncle Long, the golden lotus brocade is just the beginning. I hope we can cooperate more in the future." Lin Yuan's words made Long Tu, the current head of the Long family, look happy and excited. Being able to cooperate more with Lin Yuan would only be beneficial to the Coiling Dragon Valley. If there was something similar to today's golden lotus brocade stalks, Lin Yuan could think of the Long family in advance. Then, the Long family would be far ahead of the other factions in terms of strategy. Li Yun Avian Domain's Grand Elder was looking at Long Tu angrily and could not help but curse in his heart. Long Tu had not asked before, but now that he had asked and said that he could open Li Yun Avian Domain's treasury, Long too took out a suzerain/myth 3 law crystal to exchange for the law crystal in Lin Yuan's hand. The coiling Dragon Valley had a large business, and the Long family, which had creation masters as its core, was like a Pishio that could only enter and not exit. With abundant creation master resources, they could accumulate resources like crazy. However, Li Yun Avian Domain was different. Li Yun Avian Domain had been constantly expanding in the 40 years since it became a top faction, occupying the market for flying phase. It strengthened its monopoly on flying phase. In the past, every step of Li Yun Avian Domain's layout of the market consumed a lot of cash flow. During the continuous expansion, Li Yun Avian Domain's treasury could no longer take out things like the suzerain/myth 3 law crystal. Third, end of this chapter. Chapter 799. However, after spending a lot of resources for development in the past 40 years, Li Yun Avian Niche's layout for flying phase had been completely unfolded. In the future, it could accumulate resources and develop like the Long family. At that moment, Li Yun Avian Niche was really afraid that Lin Yuan would refuse the 2 law crystals he had originally promised after seeing the things in the Li family's treasure trove. While thinking this, Li Yunio Great Elder's hands did not stop moving. Li Yun Bird Niche's Grand Elder handed Lin Yuan an atlas that was densely packed with all kinds of phase, spiritual materials, and source-type items. Li Yun Avian Niche handed the atlas to Lin Yuan and said, "My lord, this atlas is all the Li Yun Avian Niche's current collection. Li Yun Avian Niche has been seeking development for a long time, so the collection might be lacking. Aurora Cloud Nest has been seeking development for a long time, so it might be lacking in terms of collection." Li Yun Avian Niche had mentioned that a large part of the collection in the Li Yun Avian Niche's treasure trove had been invested in the faction's construction. It was definitely not a lie. The Great Elder Li Yun Nyotsan mentioned that a large portion of the Li Yun Nyotsan treasury's collection had been invested into the construction of the faction. It was definitely not a lie. Otherwise, Li Yun Avian Niche would not have needed to belittle Li Yun Avian Niche's value during the transaction. This was not good for Li Yun Avian Niche. But even so, Lin Yuan spent 5 minutes just flipping through the premium source-type items. This showed how rich the top faction's collection was. During the process, Lin Yuan's gaze paused for a moment on many items. There were many things that Lin Yuan felt were useful to him, but he did not intend to use law origin crystals to exchange for them. In the future, if the Li family did not have law origin crystals in the transaction with Li Yun Avian Niche, he could use the upgraded Golden Lotus brocade to exchange for these things. Therefore, Lin Yuan's eyes were mainly focused on the resources that he could not exchange for with the upgraded Golden Lotus brocade. After Lin Yuan used this standard to flip through the atlas, his speed of flipping through the atlas became faster and faster. He did not even stop too much on the Myth 2 Law crystals. The Myth 2 Law crystals were good stuff, but if they could not reach the pinnacle of Myth 2, Lin Yuan would have to spend a lot of Law origin crystals to cultivate them. Including the Myth 3 Fierce Poison Law, he already had a total of 4 laws that needed to be cultivated. After the law could increase Lin Yuan's elemental immunity, the Cold Flame Law, which he had not paid attention to, became a good thing. The Frost Flame Law was a dual ice and fire law. It was a relatively unorthodox existence among the laws. However, just the Cold Flame Law alone could provide him with resistance to both ice and fire elements. He had already raised the priority of the Frost Flame Law and was ready to nurture it well. When Li Yunio Grand Elder saw that Lin Yuan was flipping faster and faster, his heart became more and more uncertain. He was almost done flipping through this atlas. If Lin Yuan really didn't find anything he liked, it would be the same as the Li family losing 2 Myth 3 phase. Without Emperor-class experts, Spirit Chi professionals with Myth 3 phase would already be the pinnacle faction's high-end combat power. Li Yun Avian Niche, who was seeking rapid development, naturally needed to steadily improve its strength while developing its business. Many of the Li Yun Avian Niche's experts were stuck at the pinnacle of Myth 2. If they could not exchange for law crystals from Lin Yuan this time, it was destined that the Li family would never have a chance to exchange for law crystals from Lin Yuan in the future. When Lin Yuan flipped through the Li Yun Avian Niche's unique resources, He found that the unique resources the Grand Elder was referring to were some eye-catching flying fays that had been specially nurtured. These flying fays had been promoted to Diamond X/Legend by the Li family, and any one of them could meet Lin Yuan's needs for flying fays. If it were in the past, Lin Yuan might have decided to exchange. However, he now had Blackie. After Blackie became a gold/fantasy breed, its speed was not much weaker than the Platinum Divine Travel Black Swallow. It was enough to meet Lin Yuan's requirements. On the other hand, if Lin Yuan wanted to build a fey carriage, he did not need 1 or 2 eye-catching flying fays. However, if Lin Yuan were to take out 9 or 12 law crystals to exchange for 9 or 12 eye-catching flying fays, he felt that it was not necessary. He had pure spirit chi that even Class 5 creation masters could not concoct, so it was not difficult to nurture a new type of flying fey. Moreover, the flying fays that he induced with pure spirit chi would only be better than those cultivated by the Li Yun avian niche. Just as Lin Yuan was thinking that if there was really no other choice, he would let the Li family exchange a large number of law crystal fragments. Lin Yuan's gaze stopped on the last page of the atlas. When he saw the last page of this atlas, Lin Yuan's heart suddenly skipped a beat. If he could exchange for this from the Li Yun avian niche, then one of his previous ideas could go from fantasy to reality. It could also be said that it was equivalent to saving him decades of hard work. Lin Yuan pointed to an ordinary green grass with sawtooth-shaped leaves on the atlas and asked the Grand Elder, "Is the body supermemory grass child ramets marked on this atlas cultivated from the mother ramets? Is the body supermemory grass child ramets marked on this atlas cultivated from the mother ramets? How are the child ramets compared to the mother ramets? I saw that there are a total of 5 child ramets marked on the Li Yun avian niche's atlas. I wonder how the Li family usually uses the body supermemory grass child ramets?" The Grand Elder was stunned by Lin Yuan's 3 questions in a row. When Lin Yuan flipped to the last page, the Grand Elder's heart fell to the bottom of the valley and almost fell into despair. He did not expect Lin Yuan to be interested in this body supermemory grass. However, the Grand Elder was a little confused about Lin Yuan's intentions. He did not know if Lin Yuan was just asking casually or if he wanted to use law crystals to exchange for the body supermemory grass child ramets. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to Li Yun avian niche picking up a huge bargain. The body supermemory grass was the basis for the Li Yun avian niche to nurture flying fays and allow them to remember the route. However, the body supermemory grass in the Li family's treasury was all split from the mother ramets. Although it had the same effect as the mother ramets, it did not have the ability to split from the mother ramets. Therefore, by trading the body supermemory grass to Lin Yuan, Li Yun avian niche was basically equivalent to getting 2 law crystals for free. The Black Cloud Bird niche's Grand Elder cleared his throat and explained to Lin Yuan without hiding anything. The body supermemory grass child ramets are usually planted in a confined space. The body supermemory grass will emit a special fragrance. The muscles of living beings that smell this fragrance will enter a supermemory mode and be able to remember complex movements and routes. The first one was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 800. He found that the data of the cat's eye stone on when use forehead under Morbius True Data was Frowny Face Sacred Source Name, Celestial Body Council, Sacred Source Species, Origin Family / Sacred Source Species, Sacred Source Star Grade, 1 star, Sacred Source Type, Mystic Realm Function, Astral Throne. In the process of the Celestial Assembly, the members of the assembly sitting on the throne of the 12 major signs of the zodiac can interact with those sitting on the throne of the northern and southern constellations at the cost of will and rules. The Celestial Council was the second true sacred source life form that he had seen, apart from the sacred sword-wielding queen. However, the sacred sword-wielding queen was different from other sacred source life forms. The sacred source life form, Sacred Sword-Wielding Queen, was formed by the fusion of 2 sacred source life forms, the Grace Queen and the Sacred Punishment Sword. When he used Morbius True Data to check the Sacred Sword-Wielding Queen, the Sacred Sword-Wielding Queen's sacred source system only showed 3 question marks. It was not like when used contracted sacred source life form, the Celestial Body Assembly, which was classified as a mystic realm. Lin Yuan could see that the Celestial Council's function was the Celestial Spirit Throne. He knew that the Celestial Council, a mystic realm's sacred source life form, could exchange resources with others in the council at the cost of rules and willpower. But what was the function of the Sacred Source Life Form Conference? He did not know the difference between the 12 ecliptic constellation thrones and the northern and southern constellation thrones. In his opinion, this should be related to Morbius grade. When Lin Yuan woke up from his coma and found out that he had Morbius, he had been stunned for a long time. He could tell that Auntie Zhang's terror rabbit was a fantasy breed elemental creature in disguise. However, the normal I/normal Morbius was unable to view the fantasy breed terror rabbit skills and exclusive skills. Now that Morbius was at bronze, he could check the Mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer's true data. This meant that as Morbius grade increased, it wasn't just the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone and Pure Land of Bliss that were changing. Even the true data of the skill was continuously increasing. Once Morbius became a fantasy breed and advanced to silver grade, Morbius would be able to use it. When he used Morbius true data to check the sacred source life form, he should be able to find more information. At that moment, she opened her eyes and saw him staring at the cat's eye stone on her forehead. Wen Yu's face couldn't help but turn slightly red as she hurriedly said, "Young master, you can see that the cat's eye stone on my forehead isn't the sacred source life form, the celestial body assembly. It's a medium. The real celestial body council is a dream space that is connected to the stars." At this point, Wen Yu's expression turned awkward. Even he was a little confused by his own explanation. Lin Yuan probably wouldn't understand. However, his sacred source life form's function in the celestial body assembly was difficult to describe with words. Only by personally attending the celestial council would he be able to understand what was going on. At that moment, Wen Yu heard Lin Yuan ask while he was deep in thought, "I roughly know what's going on with the celestial body council, but what's going on with the 12 ecliptic main constellation thrones and the northern and southern constellation thrones?" Lin Yuan's words startled Wen Yu. Wen Yu remembered that when she had just formed a contract with the Celestial Body Council, the Celestial Body Council had emitted its first cry. Even her master, Mystic Moon, had not been able to see what the Celestial Body Council's function was. However, Lin Yuan had asked about the Sacred Source Life Form, the Celestial Council's Star Spirit Chair. Wen Yu looked at Lin Yuan in shock. Could it be that Lin Yuan was looking at the cat's eye stone on her forehead to see the sacred source life form's function? Wen Yu remembered that Mystic Moon had said that the sacred source life form's function was every spirit chi professional's greatest trump card. Even if it was used, it would be difficult to find out what its specific function was. However, the Celestial Body Council's function had been seen through by Lin Yuan in just a few glances. In the mansion, only Lu Jie knew that Lin Yuan had formed a contract with the sacred source life form. The fewer people who knew, the better. Naturally, Lu Jie did not tell Wen Yu. When Wen Yu had accepted the sacred source life form from Mystic Moon, she had not wanted to form a contract with it. Mystic Moon had asked and found out that Wen Yu had wanted to leave the chance to form a contract with the sacred source life form to Lin Yuan. Mystic Moon did not know whether to laugh or cry. She then told Wen Yu that Lin Yuan had already formed a contract with the sacred source life form. Wen Yu then felt at ease and formed a contract with the sacred source life form that Mystic Moon had given her. Wen Yu could not help but wonder if the sacred source life form that Lin Yuan had formed a contract had the ability to see through directions. However, even if Lin Yuan's sacred source life form had the ability to see through directions, it would not have been possible when he had just activated the Celestial Body Council's function. He had been able to see through the Celestial Body Council's function. If it was someone else who had such an ability, Wen Yu might have paid more attention to them. However, this ability belonged to Lin Yuan, so Wen Yu naturally would not think about probing her young master's abilities. Furthermore, Mystic Moon had repeatedly reminded Wen Yu not to tell anyone about the Celestial Body Council's ability. Wen Yu still chose to tell Lin Yuan about the Celestial Body Council's ability as soon as she saw him. Wen Yu felt that the Sacred Source Life Form's ability would be of great benefit to Sky City's development. When you still remembered that Mystic Moon had said that Lin Yuan planned to develop in the Divine Wood Federation through the space tunnel. Since Lin Yuan's ambition was in the outer realm, then the Celestial Body Council's Celestial Soul Throne could be used appropriately. He could use the Dream Realm as a guide to let Sky City blossom in the unknown vast land. When you answered Lin Yuan's question, "Young Master, the Sacred Source Lifeform's Celestial Body Council is now at the 1-star level. Given my soul power and spiritual energy, I can hold one every week. Why don't I hold a Celestial Body Council later? Young Master, come with me. I'll explain the difference between the 2 seats in the council." It just so happens that Young Master has formed a contract with one of the 12 ecliptic constellations' thrones. Lin Yuan's interest was immediately piqued. The first was even more interesting. End of this chapter. Chapter 801. In battle, Chu Ci would occasionally use her sword to block external attacks or attack her targets with her sword. However, since Lin Yuan wanted to use the muscle memory grass's roots, it was obviously not as simple as learning the foil sword. Although Lin Yuan had the memories of his previous life as a transmigrator, he was no different from the natives of this world. In the Radiance Continent's Chronicles, humans had existed for nearly 200,000 years. 5,500 years ago, before Spirit Chi had appeared, humans had inherited many combat skills. These combat skills were the crystallization of human wisdom refined for nearly 200,000 years. However, after the Spirit Chi awakening, human Spirit Chi professionals had used contracted phase to fight, and those original combat skills had been put aside. In fact, many inherited combat skills had disappeared in time. However, from the 67th to the 82nd floor of the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion, the entire 15 floors were martial knowledge related to combat skills. This knowledge was perfectly preserved in the Hidden Moon Pavilion, but almost no one would visit the Hidden Moon Pavilion's 67th to 82nd floors to study these martial arts skills. However, Lin Yuan was interested in these martial arts skills. If he could master these martial arts skills, it could be used as a powerful trump card when paired with the Spirit Essence Burst. The existence of this trump card greatly improved Lin Yuan's offense and defense. However, it was not so easy to learn the entire 15 floors of martial arts skills. Mastering the skills was a process of accumulation and tempering. After the combat skills were honed to a certain extent, the body's muscles would subconsciously react according to the external situation. To reach such a level, Lin Yuan would need to polish a combat skill for at least a decade. Now, he only needed 2 muscle transcending memory grassroots, and he was confident that his body could master all 15 levels of combat techniques. At that time, Lin Yuan's muscles would firmly remember the entire 15 floors of combat skills, and his muscles would be able to choose the most ingenious way to counterattack or defend. Just as Lin Yuan was about to use 2 Law Origin crystals to exchange for 2 muscle memory grassroots, he heard Li Yun Avian Niche's elder say, "If you want a body memory transcending grass, we, the Dawn Cloud Avian Nest, can give you 2. I only hope that you can carry out this transaction with Li Yun Avian Niche." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan was slightly startled. He immediately understood that the child ramets of the muscle-transcending memory grass were not precious in the Black Cloud Bird niche. It was just like how Jin Se could easily nurture the golden lotus brocade in his hand. Although Lin Yuan had originally planned to use 2 Law Origin crystals to exchange for 2 muscle memory grassroots, since Li Yun Avian Niche's elder had said so, it saved him the resources of 2 Law Origin crystals. However, Lin Yuan was also indebted to Li Yun Avian Niche. Lin Yuan threw the 2 Law crystals to Li Yun Yao Kan and said, "That's right. The muscle memory grass is of some use to me. I won't take your muscle memory grass for nothing. 2 of them can be considered as 1 rule crystal. As for the remaining Law crystal, your Li clan can use Law crystal fragments to exchange for it. As for how much, it's up to your Li clan. The next time we trade Law Origin crystals with the Li family, the price will be set according to the amount of Law Origin crystals you pay this time." Li Yun Avian Niche's elder was overjoyed. Judging from Lin Yuan's words, Li Yun Avian Niche would have a chance to trade Law Origin crystals with Lin Yuan later. This opportunity was simply too important for Li Yun Avian Niche. As for how many law crystal fragments should be used to exchange for a law crystal, Li Yunio's Grand Elder intended to bring it to the Li family's core meeting to discuss it. At the same time, he would also ask for Li Xian's opinion. Li Yun Avian Niche's biggest problem now was that he did not have an Emperor-class expert to oversee him. However, he had 4 Pinnacle Myth 3 experts. If he could trade some law origin crystals with Lin Yuan in the future, Li Yun Avian Niche would not have to worry about not having an Emperor-class expert to oversee him. With a Scale-class expert overseeing him, Li Yun Avian Niche could truly stand tall among the top factions. He did not need to clearly control a huge share of the flying-type Fey market but still be inferior in all aspects. With this thought, Li Yun Avian Niche became even more excited and decided to save the law origin crystals he had traded this time. He would no longer distribute them to Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 2 Feys. Instead, he would wait until he had saved 10 pieces and let the Pinnacle Suzerain/Myth 3 Fey with the Phoenix species bloodline that the family head had contracted try to see if it could survive the creation calamity and become a creation breed Fey. Li Yun Avian Niche immediately expressed his stance. "Don't worry, sir. The number of law origin crystal fragments that our Li family offers will definitely satisfy you. I'll get young Master Xian to send them to you." Li Xian's body trembled when he heard how the Grand Elder addressed him. In the past, the Grand Elder would address him by his name. When he was in a good mood, he would at most call him Xian. He had never called him young Master Xian. Now, the Grand Elder had vaguely recognized his status in the Li family and regarded him as a true young master of the younger generation. The Grand Elder was the second in command in Li Yun Avian Niche apart from his grandfather. With the Grand Elder's recognition of him, he was likely to be appointed as Li Yun Avian Niche's young family head after returning to the Li family. Li Xian looked at Lin Yuan with a deep gaze, his eyes filled with endless gratitude and sincerity. After Lin Yuan, Long Tu, and Li Yun Avian Niche's Grand Elder finished the transaction, Long Tu and Li Yun Avian Niche left. Lin Yuan, Long Tao, and Li Xian went to the Muxiang residence for a meal. During the meal, Lin Yuan found out that Long Tao and Li Xian had previously appeared at the Fey Observer Guild. It was because Black had rejected Long Tao's invitation, so he had decided to invite Li Xian, a support-type spirit chi professional, to join the Dragon Gate Guild Club's main team. Long Tao had originally planned to let Chen Hongfeng fill the main team's position. However, after Chen Hongfeng had been defeated by Chu Ci at the All-Star match, he had to train in the reserve team for a few more years and prepare to enter the main team after his strength had improved. This made Long Tao rack his brains for next year's All-Star match's main team members. After the meal, Lin Yuan returned to the mansion and saw that Duan he had escorted Listen back. Upon seeing Lin Yuan, Listen hurriedly handed a diamond Fey storage box to Lin Yuan and said, "Young Master, this is the proceeds from the auction." "Young Master, these are the proceeds from the auction of the luxury items sold in the past week," Jiang Lushir said. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 802. Listen was still holding the diamond Fey storage box in his hand, and his heart still could not calm down for a long time. Over the past week, the income from the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's auction of luxury items had exceeded the cash flow of the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce during its heyday in Indigo Azure City. Such a huge amount of wealth had been earned under his operation, which made Listen feel unreal. Lin Yuan took the diamond Fey storage box from Listen's hand and could not help but raise his eyebrows in surprise. In addition to the spirit craftsman resources in the engineering pavilion that Hu Quan controlled, Lin Yuan had invested in Listen with some completely jade-textured wood scraps that had been piled up as garbage in the storage room. Lin Yuan had also invested in Listen with high-stakes luxury goods. These high-end goods included a whole completely jade-textured wood board and heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls with pearls. However, Hu Quan did not feel at ease leaving these high-end luxury goods to the Class 3 spirit craftsmen under him to create. Hu Quan had been busy with the manor's hidden dragon lake and the underground space during this time and had not come up to create these high-end luxury goods. However, Listen had been using the waste in the return from Faraway Manor to create value. Looking at the mountain of radiance dollars in the diamond Fey storage box, Lin Yuan estimated that Listen had increased the premium of those luxury goods by at least 50%. This was Listen's superior talent and ability in business. Lin Yuan stretched out his hand and gave Listen a thumbs up. Listen, you're indeed a business genius. With the development of Sky City, Lin Yuan had become busier and busier. In the past, Lin Yuan would more or less pay attention to the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's development, but he had now become a hands-off shopkeeper. Therefore, Lin Yuan had not made any suggestions on the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's development. However, during this time, the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's development had far exceeded Lin Yuan's expectations at that time. Listen immediately became excited when he heard Lin Yuan's praise, and the fatigue between his eyebrows suddenly dissipated. It was replaced by enthusiasm and excitement. In the past 2 months, Listen had been working tirelessly and would never sleep for more than 5 hours each time. Lin Yuan had become enemies with the Zheng family because of him, and he had even attracted the attack of 2 Emperor-class experts outside Indigo Azure City. Listen had always kept these things in mind and did not dare to forget for a moment. He did not have powerful strength, so all he could do was manage the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce well and create higher value for Lin Yuan. Now that Listen had handed in his first answer to Lin Yuan, he felt that everything he had done during this time was finally worth it. Immediately after, Listen found that Lin Yuan had handed the Diamond Fei storage box back to him. Developing a faction has never been about storing Radiance dollars in a Diamond Fei storage box. You can take the Radiance dollars you earned and use them as you wish. We previously agreed that the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce would develop into a rising force within half a year, but I feel that you have the ability to build it into a business empire. They even used their own methods to monopolize a certain type of goods in the market. With Sky City supporting you, you don't have to worry about fighting. Whether the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce can occupy a place among the top 50 factions in terms of business will depend on your own development. After hearing Lin Yuan's words, Listen's eyes widened. He did not expect Lin Yuan to have such high expectations of him. In the face of Lin Yuan's expectations, Listen suddenly felt that he saw a wider, more exciting path ahead. In fact, Lin Yuan had said this to Listen because he felt that Listen had the ability. On the other hand, Lin Yuan had a feeling after hearing Elder Li Yun Avian can mention the Li Yun Avian Can's development. He stood beside Lin Yuan and looked at Lin Yuan's gaze, suddenly feeling that he admired Lin Yuan more and more. He's admiration for Lin Yuan was not because of Lin Yuan's structure or because of his affirmation of his subordinates. It was because of the 40 hot spring snails that Lin Yuan had enhanced for the Indigo Azure Guard. Thanks to the Indigo Azure Guard captain's feedback, almost every hot spring snail's exclusive skill was extremely suitable for battlefield combat. When Lin Yuan had upgraded these hot spring snails from elite to epic, it was clear that when Lin Yuan had upgraded them, the quality of these hot spring snails had reached epic. This proved that Lin Yuan had a lamp in his heart that could light up radiance. As the Moon Empress disciple, it was Radiance's blessing to have such a lamp in his heart. He firmly believed that this lamp in Lin Yuan's heart would also be able to emit dazzling radiance in the future. He solemnly took out a Platinum Fei storage box and handed it to Lin Yuan. Young Master, there are 500 hot spring snails and 1,500 law origin crystals in this Fei storage box. The Indigo Azure Guard captain wants me to make another deal with you. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan immediately reached out and took the Platinum Fei storage box from Hu Quan's hand. No problem. The dimensional rift has also reached the finishing stage. This is the most dangerous time during the active period of the dimensional rift. I'll upgrade the hot spring snails as soon as possible so that they can appear on the battlefield at this dangerous time. Although the hot spring snails' external healing effect is strong, they are lacking in vitality replenishment. In this deal, I'm going to provide Indigo Azure City with an additional 30 bronze/epic jasmine lilies to match with the hot spring snails and replenish the vitality of the supported Indigo Azure Guards. It was getting easier and easier for Lin Yuan to nurture high-quality bronze phase. However, now that he had the Golden Lotus Brocade, Lin Yuan was less and less dependent on nurturing high-quality bronze phase in exchange for law origin crystals. Lin Yuan only needed to take out 50 golden lotus brocade to exchange for 1,500 law origin crystals. 50 golden lotus brocade was only the work of the golden lotus brocade. Even if Lin Yuan was now a B-rank spirit chi professional, it would still take him nearly 4 years to enhance 500 bronze/epic phase. However, as long as there were orders like the hot spring snails from the Indigo Azure Guards, Lin Yuan would not reject them. This was because Lin Yuan knew that the phase he worked overtime to enhance would eventually transform into fresh Indigo Azure Guards' lives. While he was nurturing phase to earn resources, he was also redeeming one life after another that he had protected. As for the 30 pots of bronze/epic jasmine lilies, it was Lin Yuan's sincerity in addition to the deal. He hoped that in the face of disaster, those who had become great because of their protection could be safe and sound and live a carefree life. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 803. When Duan he heard Lin Yuan's words, even though he was an emperor-class expert, his eyes could not help but turn hot. Duan he was an Indigo Azure native, born in Indigo Azure City, and also a Radiance native. However, he still found it hard to imagine that Lin Yuan would actually be willing to give 30 bronze/epic jasmine lilies to Indigo Azure City for free to help it resist the dimensional rift. 30 bronze/epic jasmine lilies were not a small fortune. If it was calculated according to Radiance dollars, Lin Yuan had provided at least 1.2 billion Radiance dollars to Indigo Azure City this time. Lin Yuan returned to his room with the platinum phase storage box that contained 500 hot spring snails and prepared to enter the Spirit Lock spatial zone to enhance this batch of hot spring snails. However, just as he entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone, he remembered that he still had something important to do. It was to talk to Chimey about the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess. Lin Yuan had never realized that Chimey, which was always by his side, actually had such ideas. It had actually started live streaming in the Xia region store. When Chimey had just started live streaming, Lin Yuan remembered that he had only given Genius and Chimey Star Web cards a few days ago. It was not easy to open a live streaming room on Star Web, and Chimey definitely could not have done it with its intelligence at that time. In other words, Genius must have helped Chimey become the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess and keep live streaming on Star Web. Now, Lin Yuan seemed to suddenly understand why Chimey and Genius were always together mysteriously. Even in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, they would always go to the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree's treetop. Chimey and Genius must be together to study about Star Web live streaming. As soon as Lin Yuan entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone, he found the wind speed rapid antelope tidying up the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls that the elemental shellfish had spat out. In the process of Lin Yuan feeding it a wind elemental heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl every 2 days, the wind speed rapid antelope's strength had unknowingly increased from gold I to gold 7. Its quality had also increased from flawless to legend. After being baptized by pure wind elements and nourished by pure spirit chi day and night, the wind speed rapid antelope's fur had continuously transformed from khaki to white. Many cyan patterns that were similar to those on the Celestine elemental shellfish appeared on the wind speed rapid antelope's increasingly milky fur. These cyan patterns were none other than the elemental symbols formed when the wind elements were extremely rich. The wind speed rapid antelope had been rescued by Lin Yuan from a critical state, and it had been reborn. The wind speed rapid antelope, which originally had no horns, now had 2 small round bumps on both sides of its forehead. They felt like 2 bony protrusions. Lin Yuan knew that this was a sign that the wind speed rapid antelope's degraded horns were about to grow out again. When the wind speed rapid antelope grew its horns, its genetic model would undergo a transformation. By then, the wind speed rapid antelope would evolve into a brand new fae. The the demon the rapid antelope had said, no, the demon. The Ling the Feng's section sect. Now, the wind speed rapid antelope's intelligence was no longer that of a child's. Instead, it was that of a 13 or 14-year-old teenager. Lin Yuan knew to say Lins to the spirit. The Ling spirit now, he was and had. Wind Ling, Spirit Azure City is Yuan. To know. Ling Rapid Spirit to Azure was. Lin Yuan rubbed the wind-speed rapid antelope's head and fed it 2 wind-type heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls to it. Since the wind-speed rapid antelope was so talented in the use of the wind elements, Lin Yuan might as well nurture it. After some consideration, Lin Yuan said to the wind-speed rapid antelope, "After you complete your evolution, I will give you a name that belongs to you." After you complete your evolution, I will give you a name that belongs to you. During this period of time, as long as you feel that the wind elemental pearls in your body have been completely digested, you can pick them from the box. The wind-speed rapid antelope was elated. However, when it thought of the 2 protrusions on its forehead, it didn't use the side of its head to rub Lin Yuan's leg. Instead, it stuck out its tongue and licked Lin Yuan's palm. Inside the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Silver Flower, Jean Se, and Princess were busy. However, Jean Se was busy nurturing the Golden Lotus Brocade's child plants. Silver Flower and Princess were busy absorbing the insect pattern Coral Jade, while the other was busy absorbing the Law Origin Crystal. It had been nearly 5 minutes since Lin Yuan entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone, but Chimey and Genius didn't notice his arrival at all. Based on Chimey's current situation of live streaming for 4 to 5 hours every day, Chimey must have known about the incident of the gift dropping. Lin Yuan recalled the information on the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess that when you had given him about the top 100 rewards that had surprised him. Excluding the portion deducted from Star Web, all of Chimey's rewards added up to at least 400 million radiance dollars. Lin Yuan had just provided 30 pots of bronze/epic jasmine lilies to Indigo Azure City for free, and the market price of healing type phase was slightly higher. 30 bronze/epic jasmine lilies could easily be sold for 1.2 billion radiance dollars. Compared to the 1.2 billion radiance dollars that Lin Yuan had just casually given, the 400 million radiance dollars that Chimey had earned from live streaming was not considered a lot. However, this also depended on how it was compared. If it had been a year ago in the Xia region, Chimey's 400 million radiance dollars would probably have been enough to buy the entire Xia region. For live streaming income, 400 million radiance dollars was a huge sum. Chimey had always been by his side, and he had provided Chimey with the best things. It ate platinum celery vines and lived in the heaven and earth Fey Phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. It could be said that Chimey did not need to think about money at all. Therefore, Lin Yuan was really afraid that Chimey would use the 400 million radiance dollars to study on Star Web. Lin Yuan circulated his spiritual power, and thousands of black feathers seeped out of the amber button-shaped source sand. These feathers combined to form 6 black wings on Lin Yuan's back. Lin Yuan gently flapped his wings and immediately appeared at the treetop of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. When he reached the treetop, he heard Genius whispering, "Chimey must tell Lin Yuan about this now. Chimey must tell Lin Yuan about this now." Because of Lin Yuan's identity as black, Chimey has been greatly affected. As long as Chimey speaks the truth, Lin Yuan will not blame Chimey. Lin Yuan was relieved to hear that. Genius and Chimey were not just contract partners to Lin Yuan. They were actually like children that he had watched grow up. It seemed that Genius was at least sensible. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard Chimey's voice. After hearing Chimey's words, Lin Yuan was stunned. Second, even more. End of this chapter. Chapter 804. When it spoke, Chimey's tone was clearly a little anxious and timid. Genius knows that Chimey is live streaming on Star Web. It's partly because Chimey likes to sing. It also wants to earn some money so that Genius and Lin Yuan can each have a plate of red braised meat. They don't need to share it anymore. But I didn't expect that when Chimey received the reward, Lin Yuan and Genius could already eat red braised meat. Originally, Chimey wanted to wait for Lin Yuan to receive the surprise gift box before fighting with him. Who knew that the PK would cause the gift to drop? Before Genius could say anything, Chimey spoke again. Furthermore, Chimey chose the attractive section when setting up the live streaming room. Lin Yuan will definitely blame me if he finds out. After all, Chimey is just a sparrow and not a girl. Just as Chimey finished speaking, it heard a clear and pleasant voice that was so familiar to the depths of its soul. Chimey is now a myth breed. When it reaches myth 2, It will be no different from a normal girl when it transforms into a human. Chimey is now at Fantasy 3. Does Chimey not have the confidence to raise its quality to Myth 2? Lin Yuan was obviously comforting it and didn't have any intention to blame it. Chimey quickly flapped its wings and lay flat in Lin Yuan's embrace, whimpering with grievance. The news that Chimey had been live-streaming on Star Web behind Lin Yuan's back had brought it a lot of trouble. Lin Yuan looked at Chimey and let out a sigh before using his fingertip to rub Chimey's head. After listening to Genius and Chimey's conversation, Lin Yuan already knew the whole story of Chimey live-streaming on Star Web. He also knew that Chimey hadn't learned bad things. However, Lin Yuan didn't understand why Chimey was so afraid of his objection. If Lin Yuan found out that Chimey had such a hobby and wanted to live-stream on Star Web, he would immediately help Chimey get a live-streaming account on Star Web. Lin Yuan would naturally fully support Chimey's hobby. However, if Lin Yuan was the one who helped Chimey get a Star Web account, he wouldn't let Chimey livestream in the attractive section. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly thought of an item that had left an impression on him in Li Yun Avian Nest's treasure trove, the God Bodhi fruit. The God Bodhi fruit was a fruit that the divine movement Bodhi tree could bear after decades of wind and frost. The divine form Bodhi fruit had no effect on human spirit chi professionals. The divine shape Bodhi fruit could allow fantasy breed phase to achieve the state that only Myth 2 phase could transform for a period of time, which was to take human form. The Bodhi fruit that could transform one's body was a relatively useless spiritual material. It was precisely because the divine shape Bodhi fruit was too useless that it had left an impression on Lin Yuan. The divine form Bodhi fruit was a consumable, and the transformation time would depend on the fantasy breed phase quality. Chimey was currently fantasizing thrice. According to the principle of 2 hours for each transformation, the divine Bodhi fruit could allow Chimey to transform into a human for about 3 hours. Now that such a thing had happened, Chimey had to step forward to resolve the situation. Lin Yuan used his finger to gently rub Chimey's head for a long time before it stopped crying. Lin Yuan asked Chimey, "What are you going to do now that the live GIF on Star Web has dropped?" At that moment, the worry in Chimey's eyes had disappeared. However, after hearing Lin Yuan's question, its eyes dimmed. After a long while, Chimey said, "Why don't Enin stop live streaming on the Star Web?" Upon seeing Chimey's listless appearance, Lin Yuan could not help but smile. Chimey's idea was so righteous, but no one expected Chimey to become a deserter at such a time. However, Lin Yuan still had to pamper his contracted fae. Lin Yuan said seriously to Chimey, "I have a divine Bodhi fruit. With it, you can transform for 3 hours with your Fantasy 3 quality. You can use your human form to resolve the GIF drop on Star Web. However, the Star Web doesn't stipulate that phase cannot be live-streamed in the attractive section. But blocking a GIF for a live broadcast is somewhat deceptive. Therefore, Chimey can reveal the fact that it is a fae when it transforms." Upon hearing that, the luster in Chimey's eyes returned. When Lin Yuan saw the luster in Chimey's eyes, he felt that it was even more dazzling than the Twilight Rune. Chimey excitedly flapped its wings and flew a few rounds in the Spirit Lock spatial zone before asking with hope in front of Lin Yuan, "Lin Yuan, is that true?" Lin Yuan rolled his eyes at Chimey and said, "All right. When have I ever lied?" After getting Lin Yuan's affirmation, Chimey once again flew a few rounds in the Spirit Lock spatial zone before landing in front of Lin Yuan. Can Chimey still block GIFs in the future? Chimey wants to get rid of the GIFs on its face when it truly reaches Myth 2. Chimey wants to hold a concert. This was the first time Chimey had revealed its dream to Lin Yuan. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan smiled. "Then, Chimey, you lazy worm, have to work hard to improve your strength on the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree. If Chimey holds a concert, don't forget to leave the first row for me." Chimey's eyes lit up. The first row will be left for Lin Yuan. Genius, Red Thorn, Source Sand, Jasmine Lily, Black, and the others. Everyone else has to sit in the second row. Lin Yuan was stumped. If that was really the case, wouldn't the first row of Chimey's concert become a meeting for animals? When Chimey was singing, Red Thorn's megaphone could perform an ensemble with Chimey. At the thought of this, Lin Yuan's expression froze. He suddenly thought that when Chimey became a myth 2 Fae, his other Faes should also be able to transform. At that time, it was really possible for them to sit in the first row to attend Yinin's concert. While speaking, Lin Yuan, Chimey, and Genius sat on the branches of the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and snuggled together. Lin Yuan suddenly recalled the surprise box that Chimey had mentioned and said to Chimey, "On StarWeb, if the surprise box has more than 100,000 Radiance dollars, you can appeal to the officials to revoke the reward before the box arrives. Yinin, go and appeal. This is the money Yinin earned with its talent. Yinin can decide how to use it. However, I don't want Yinin to squander this money wantonly. Instead, I hope Yinin can use this money to do something meaningful." Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Chimey nodded, but its mind was not on Lin Yuan's words at all. Instead, he was looking forward to seeing how beautiful he would be in his human form. Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 805. Bei Su woke up from the pile of rocks he had built and immediately heard a slight rustling sound outside the pile of rocks. Upon hearing this rustling sound, Bei Su felt all the hair on his body stand on end. This rustling sound was like a curse in the cave continent's underground world. It was the sound made by the Thread-Blade Centipede group. The Thread-Blade Centipede was not considered a Fae, and its only attack power was its big mouth. As long as an adult was careful not to be bitten by the Thread-Blade Centipede's big mouth, a few steps would be enough to trample it to death. The reason why Bei Su felt his hair stand on end was because he thought of a legend. The Thread-Blade Centipede did not actually like to gnaw on flesh. Instead, it liked to use its big mouth to scrape metal spiritual ingredients. It was rumored that the place where the Thread-Blade Centipede group appeared was likely to have an underground dimensional rift. For anyone who did not have a Fae in the cave continent, an underground dimensional rift was equivalent to a funeral that could not be escaped. Just as Bei Su suddenly recalled that Lin Yuan had teleported a Fae for him at the Celestial Council, a black shadow pasted on Bei Su's face, giving him a fright. Bei Su focused his eyes and found out that this black shadow was a bat that looked like it was only the size of his palm. Upon seeing the Fae that Lin Yuan had teleported to him, Bei Su was delighted and realized that he was finally going to become a spirit chi professional. However, Bei Su immediately fell into despair. Even if he contracted the Fae in his hand now, could he really survive in front of a large number of underground life forms gushing out of the underground dimensional rift? Seeing that the Thread-Blade Centipede had already drilled in from the gap of the pile of rocks, Bei Su immediately circulated his spiritual energy and contracted the bat Fae in his hand. Bei Su's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Bei Su's request was just to exchange for a Fae from Lin Yuan, but he did not expect Lin Yuan to give him such a powerful Fae. Bei Su's eyes were filled with deep gratitude, surprise, and longing. After feeling the Edge Shadow Bat's ability, Bei Su finally knew why Lin Yuan had said to him, "You can do it." With the Edge Shadow Bat, the curse on his body, Stone Worm, would no longer be a restriction on his identity. Just after Bei Su formed a contract with the Razor Shadow Bat, Bei Su discovered a black ring engraved with a bat pattern and 2 bottles of spirit liquid on the ground through his mental connection with the bat. Bei Su, who had been mining since he was born, only knew that Faes were rare in the cave continent's underground world. Bei Su did not know what the black bat-shaped ring and the 2 bottles of spirit liquid that Lin Yuan had teleported over were for. However, Bei Su was certain that these 2 items were part of the surprise that Lin Yuan had mentioned. Bei Su carefully wrapped the black ring and the spirit liquid with the insect wings he just got and put them in his arms. Then he stood up from the pile of rubble and commanded the Shadow Edge Bat to use its wing shadow blade to kill the blade thread snakes that had burrowed into the cracks of the rocks one by one. Looking at the insect carcass on the ground, Bei Su habitually summoned the willpower rune that he had comprehended before. However, he did not expect that the Edge Shadow Bat that he had just contracted would suddenly collide with the willpower rune that he had just summoned. Following that, Bei Su's mouth grew bigger and bigger, and there was even a suspicious liquid dripping from the corner of his lips. While Bei Su was confused, he found that his contracted Shadow Edge bat was becoming stronger and stronger. Bei Su was completely confused about the Shadow Edge bat's changes, but he knew that after the Shadow Edge bat became stronger, the willpower rune that he had comprehended had disappeared. Sensing the Shadow Edge bat's strength after becoming stronger, Bei Su felt that even if a Class 1 underground dimensional rift really opened, he might be able to kill his way out by relying on the Shadow Edge bat. If he had God's view and could see Bei Su's situation, he would probably spit out a mouthful of blood. He had forgotten that due to the disparity in knowledge and information, Bei Su did not know what the diamond face storage box and the 2 bottles of spirit liquid were for without him saying anything. The things that Lin Yuan wanted Bei Su to increase his strength had become a burden that Bei Su needed to carry and protect at all times. Due to Bei Su's identity as a stoneworm, he did not even know the common knowledge that everyone in the Radiance Federation knew about phase quality and grade, as well as the relationship between willpower runes and fantasy breed phase. Bei Su did not even know that when his Shadow Edge bat had evolved into a fantasy breed, it had accidentally stimulated the bat species phase Emperor bloodline and transformed into a monarch bat. Fortunately, with the Bronze X/Fantasy I monarch bat, Bei Su indeed had the ability to protect himself in the Rock Continent's underground world and could survive. On the other side, Yin Lin woke up from the soft bed. After waking up, Yin Lin's heart was pounding. Knowing that she had seen the light again, Yin Lin did not immediately open her eyes. Instead, after a long time, Yin Lin's eyes secretly opened a gap. Through this gap, Yin Lin saw a world that was both familiar and strange to her. Everywhere she looked, there was a kind of indescribable beauty and reality. Colors, shapes, fine textures, all of these were specific to the current Yin Lin. Just a glance at such a world made Yin Lin sink into fascination. A lot of tears gushed out of Yin Lin's eyes. The tears slid down Yin Lin's nose, and they were abnormally warm. The moment the tears flowed down, Yin Lin's face revealed an extremely brilliant smile. This smile perfectly described what it meant to cry tears of joy. At this moment, a thin sound came from the door of Yin Lin's room. Clearly, even if someone walked on the fur carpet, they were still afraid of disturbing Yin Lin. Yin Lin saw her mother walking in from the door. Yin Lin's mother, Guanda, walked in and wanted to cover Yin Lin with a blanket, but she didn't expect Yin Lin to wake up. The moment she saw Yin Lin, Guanda was stunned. This was because Guanda discovered that not only did an azure leopard totem appear on Yin Lin's left cheek, but even the right cheek had a white lion-shaped totem that was a whole circle smaller than the azure leopard totem. Guanda, who was born in a 5-star family, could remain calm even if a mountain collapsed in front of her. But after seeing the totem on Yin Lin's left and right cheeks, she couldn't help but tremble. Guanda had always felt that her daughter, Yin Lin, had a hard life. But now, even if Yin Lin's eyes still couldn't see anything, in Guanda's heart, Yin Lin was the luckiest person in the world. Guanda didn't expect Yin Lin to awaken the most precious Lingyan White Lion Spirit Rune from the 4-star Yin clan and the Azure Cloud Leopard Spirit Rune from the 5-star Guan clan during her afternoon nap. The first one was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 806. Guanda had been taking Yin Lin into seclusion so that she could have a stable and peaceful life after losing her sight. Now that Yin Lin had awakened the Azure Cloud Leopard Spirit Pattern and the Spirit Speech White Lion Spirit Pattern, she was fully qualified to freely enter and exit the Guan family's Azure Cloud Leopard Mystic Realm and the Yin family's Spirit Speech White Lion Mystic Realm. At that moment, 11 of the Azure Federation's 12 major 5-star aristocratic families possessed the Azure Legacy Beast Pattern's younger generation. Only the Guan family's younger generation had yet to master the Azure Legacy Beast Pattern, causing the Guan family's influence among the Azure continent's 12 major 5-star aristocratic families to slowly weaken. Now, the Guan family's Beast Pattern Envoy had finally appeared. Moreover, the Guan family's Beast Pattern Envoy was also the Yin family's Beast Pattern Envoy. With the 2 aristocratic families' Beast Pattern Envoys, Yin Lin could already be called the most distinguished member of the younger generation in the Azure Federation. At that thought, Guanda's eyes were a little moist. At that moment, a pair of hands gently wiped the corners of Guanda's eyes, and a pleasant voice was filled with worry. "Mommy, why are you crying?" Upon hearing that, Gwanda subconsciously wanted to say that she was not crying. However, Gwanda suddenly reacted and looked at Lin in disbelief. Lin, you can see clearly?" Lin nodded her head lightly. "Mommy, I can see this world clearly like a normal person." Looking at the clear and wonderful world, Lin felt as if she had been reborn. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was enhancing phase in the spirit lock spatial zone, would never have thought that he had been afraid that Lin's eyes could not fully recover, so he had injected more vitality. He had actually imperceptibly created an Azure envoy that was about to bloom in the Azure Federation. These few days could be said to be Lin Yuan's busiest days. Although Lin Yuan had worked so hard before, he had also left the Spirit Lock spatial zone a few times in addition to nurturing phase. He had received the Law Origin crystals from Long Tao and Li Xian. Lin Yuan could now be said to have formed a triangular long-term cooperative relationship with the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley and the Li family's Li Yun Niao Kansas. Therefore, the Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley and the Li family's Li Yun Niao Kan had shown considerable sincerity to Lin Yuan. The Long family's Coiled Dragon Valley had Long Tao deliver 12,540 Law Origin crystals in advance, as well as the Suzerain/Myth 3 Venomous Law crystal that had been agreed upon. This was the first time he had obtained a Law crystal from a Suzerain/Myth 3 Fey. The Law crystal in a Myth 3 Fey was one size bigger than the Law crystal in a Myth 2 Fey. Furthermore, the number of carvings in the Law crystal had also increased from 2 to 3. According to the principle, the stronger the Fey was when it was alive, the brighter the carving inside the Law crystal would be. He carefully checked the brightness of the 3 notches on the Vicious Poison Law crystal with the help of True Data Check. He was certain that this Venomous Law crystal had come from a mid-stage Suzerain 9/Myth 3 Jade-Scaled Heaven-Devouring Python. On the other side, Li Yun Niaokang asked Li Xian to bring 6,210 Law Origin crystals and a brocade box of Law crystal fragments. There were also the 2 body-transcending memory grasses that Lin Yuan had been looking forward to. When Li Xian had come, Lin Yuan had also taken the opportunity to propose the idea of trading with Li Yun Niaokang for the God-shaped Bodhi fruit. As a result, Li Xian immediately returned to Li Yun Niaokang's mansion in the royal capital and took the God-shaped Bodhi fruit from the Grand Elder's diamond face storage box and handed it to Lin Yuan. Since Lin Yuan had proposed the God-shaped Bodhi fruit, which had a special effect but had no special meaning, Li Xian was very willing to give it to Lin Yuan in order to express his gratitude. Lin Yuan had originally wanted to give Li Xian a pot of golden lotus brocade, but he had not expected Li Xian to refuse it no matter what. Lin Yuan could only give up and remember Li Xian's kindness in his heart. After returning to the Spirit Lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan opened the brocade box that Li Xian had brought and found that it was half filled with Law crystal fragments. Lin Yuan tried to grab it with his hand and found that his hand could not grab the Law crystal fragments in the brocade box. In addition to the Law crystal fragments in Lin Yuan's hand, there was still about 1/5 of the Law crystal fragments left in the brocade box. Looking at such a large number of Law crystal fragments, Lin Yuan nodded in satisfaction. Regardless of the quality of these Law crystal fragments, just the quantity had already far exceeded Lin Yuan's expectations. After being absorbed by Princess Luo Kun, this box of Law crystal fragments could give Lin Yuan a return that was far more than 20 times that of the Law crystal. It could also provide a variety of complicated laws for Princess Luo Kun's world. This kind of cost-free business simply made Lin Yuan earn a lot of money. After checking the quality of these Law crystal fragments, Lin Yuan found that most of them came from different myth breed phase. The Law's attributes were abnormally complicated, but not all of them were unorthodox. The Law crystal fragments of each type were relatively evenly distributed. Obviously, the Li family had carefully selected them. This was simply great for Lin Yuan. Even if Lin Yuan now had a large number of Law origin crystals, it was still not enough to nurture a variety of laws into a world. On the one hand, these chaotic laws could be used as consumables for the Celestial Council to use the Star Spirit Throne after Lin Yuan filtered them. On the other hand, it could also allow Lin Yuan's body to have a low degree of immunity to various elemental attributes, which was also considered an increase in Lin Yuan's strength. After receiving the God-shaped Bodhi fruit from Li Xian, Lin Yuan gave it to Chaimi. He let Chaimi decide when to use the divine movement Bodhi fruit. At first, Lin Yuan thought that Chaimi would eagerly eat the God-shaped Bodhi fruit and go to the Sparrow Voice Lowly Goddess's live-streaming room to start a live-streaming. However, he did not expect Chaimi to be conflicted after receiving the God-shaped Bodhi fruit. It carefully hid the God-shaped Bodhi fruit in the bird's nest formed by the phoenix perching Chinese parasol tree and kept chirping at Genius and Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan, Genius, do you think Chaimi will look good in human form? Lin Yuan, do you think Chaimi should wear the clothes it brought when it transforms into human form or buy a set of clothes suitable for live streaming? Genius, can Chaimi hug you in the live streaming room when it transforms into human form? Chaimi also wants to pet the cat like Lin Yuan. Chaimi's conflict and questions made Genius and Lin Yuan look at each other, not knowing what to say. They could not help but sigh. Is the world of a young bird girl so complicated? When Genius heard Chaimi's last question, it immediately became sluggish. Genius did not expect that Chaimi, which it had treated as a good partner, would actually want to pet it during the live streaming. The second was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 807. Wouldn't it be embarrassing for so many people in the live stream room to see it if it made a gurgling sound during the live stream? During the next few days of nurturing phase, Lin Yuan realized that the conflicted Chaimi had no intention of live streaming at all. Lin Yuan no longer cared about when Chaimi would live stream. Instead, he threw a total of 18,780 law origin crystals to the princess, who had been so happy that she could not find her bearings these past few days. The princess had more than 800 law origin crystals in her hands over the past few days. She was already very happy to be able to enjoy the energy in the law origin crystals. Now that she saw Lin Yuan throw her a total of 18,780 law origin crystals, she was dumbfounded. The princess could not help but count with her fingers. Given the speed at which she consumed the law origin crystals, it would take her nearly a month to absorb them day and night. Eating was a happy thing. Eating was a happy meal. The princess felt that she could completely experience the feeling of eating and being happy all the time in the future. This was simply the ultimate happiness of a sacred source life form. It was simply great to have a contractor that could constantly earn food for her. The princess suddenly had a feeling that she could complete the transformation from infancy to adulthood in a short time. Just as the princess was counting her fingers and giggling, a pair of bony hands appeared in front of her. Between the fingers of this pair of hands was a dark green crystal. Lin Yuan looked at the princess' expression and could not help but feel a little funny. Lin Yuan thought that if the princess was not a sacred source life form and was born in human form, then as a fae, according to her nature, she should be a hamster. Like a little miser who liked to crazily hoard food. With that thought, Lin Yuan was suddenly embarrassed. When it came to hamsters, it seemed that he was not inferior to her and also liked to hoard things. Lin Yuan had always raised the princess as a daughter. At that moment, Lin Yuan silently muttered in his heart. It was really like the old saying, like father, like daughter. With that thought, Lin Yuan felt even more embarrassed. The princess took the Myth 3 Poison Law crystal from Lin Yuan's hand and looked at it. Her mouth twitched slightly. As a sacred source life form, the princess still felt that law origin crystals were more in line with her taste. With a feast like the law origin crystal, a Myth 3 Law crystal was at most a small snack for the princess. Upon seeing Lin Yuan's embarrassed expression, the princess felt rather conflicted. He felt that he should absorb more rules related to wisdom, knowledge, and enlightenment. This law should make him smarter through Luo Kun's blessing. Lin Yuan didn't know what the princess was thinking, but if he did, he would probably roll his eyes at her. Upon seeing the princess take the Myth 3 Vicious Venom Law crystal, Lin Yuan instructed her. I'll leave this Vicious Poison Law crystal with you for now, but don't absorb it yet. You can absorb it when I let you absorb it in 2 days. The princess nodded upon hearing that. If Lin Yuan had not taken the initiative to instruct her, she would not have absorbed the law origin crystals. The princess nodded and casually handed a huge leather bag to Lin Yuan. This leather bag was filled with law crystals the size of a fingernail. The princess had obviously refined them from the law origin crystals during this day. Lin Yuan took the bag of law crystals from the princess and prepared to send them to Endless Summer in a while. He wanted Endless Summer to improve her strength as soon as possible. In more than 4 days, Lin Yuan had worked overtime to enhance 400 hot spring snails. These 400 hot spring snails were still the same as before. Lin Yuan first enhanced each of them to Elite/Epic. Then, he would choose the best exclusive skills from the 3 after upgrading them to Bronze. In the end, each hot spring snail was upgraded to Bronze X/Epic. As for the 30 jasmine lilies that Lin Yuan had gifted to Indigo Azure City, he had asked Listen to rely on the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's functions to get him 30 pots of low-quality bronze jasmine lilies with the exclusive skill Overheal. The exclusive skill, Overheal, was considered a rare skill among the jasmine lilies. It could stimulate the activity of the jasmine lily's body in a short time, allowing the jasmine lily to quickly send its vitality energy into the target's body through the flower head. His exclusive skill, Excessive Healing, would pump a huge amount of vitality energy into the target's body, and it would inevitably cause unnecessary consumption of vitality energy. However, the jasmine lily, which was also using its exclusive skill, Overheal, had a first aid effect. It could allow the target's vitality to reach its peak within a short period of time. This kind of exclusive skill was very suitable to be used at critical junctures in outdoor battles. It could maximize the chances of snatching a severely injured life from the hands of the Grim Reaper. After dealing with the jasmine lily and the hot spring snail, Lin Yuan stretched his body. He turned to look at Genius and said, "Smart. Have you memorized all the basic combat techniques and movement techniques on Star Web?" Genius meowed when it heard that, then it spoke in a childish voice. Lin Yuan, Genius has memorized all the basic combat skills and publicly available movement techniques on Star Web. Genius has also integrated these combat skills and movement techniques into a system through data integration. But to be honest, there are so many combat techniques and movement techniques on the Star Web. It's so hard to find them. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan rubbed Genius' little head. While he had been nurturing Phase for the past few days, Genius had searched the entire Star Web for combat techniques and movement techniques. It was really hard for him to be smart. He took out the muscle memory transcending grassroots from the amber button-shaped diamond Phase storage box. After Lin Yuan had obtained the muscle memory grass seedlings, he had gone to the back mountain alone to deal with the muscle memory grass roots in an uninhabited place. As many people in the mansion had drunk the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, the gas emitted by the muscle transcending grass had lost its effect. However, there were many Phase in the manor that hadn't been cleansed of their impurities. Therefore, the gas emitted by the muscle memory herbs seedling had a great impact on the Phase in the mansion. Lin Yuan didn't want the angelfish of bliss in the hidden WIRM lake, which had just been constructed, to collectively flip over tomorrow. He put a muscle memory herb's root into his mouth, chewed it, and swallowed it while enduring the bitterness. The impurities in his body and soul had been cleansed. Thus, he did not feel the slightest discomfort. At that instant, all the muscle cells in his body became restless. The third one. End of chapter. Chapter 808. In an instant, Lin Yuan received the massive amount of knowledge from Genius's mind. The knowledge was imprinted in Lin Yuan's mind through the interconnection tale. At that moment, Lin Yuan's body started to crazily engrave and memorize the combat skills and movement techniques that appeared in his mind. During the half an hour when Lin Yuan's body entered the interconnection tale, his body had memorized all the combat skills and movement techniques on Star Web. This allowed Lin Yuan to subconsciously use these movement techniques to counterattack when defending or attacking. If Lin Yuan knew nothing about martial arts before, he could now be described as a martial arts master. However, Lin Yuan's seemingly shortcut was a miracle that could not be replicated. First of all, he needed to get the silver stamen gold luster kasha nectar from the radiant moon palace to remove the impurities in his body and soul. Just this point alone had stumped many people. The second requirement was to obtain the root of the flesh memory grass, a heaven and earth spirit treasure. The flesh memory grass was a heaven and earth spirit treasure unique to the Li family. Therefore, in order to obtain the muscle transcending memory herb, he had to obtain Li Yun Niokang's approval. If Lin Yuan had not been able to take out the golden lotus brocade plant and the law crystal, even if he had relied on his identity as the Moon Empress disciple, the Li family would not have given him the muscle transcending grass, which was used to nurture flying phase. The third point was Genius's exclusive skill, the interconnection tail. Actually, compared to the other 2 points, the third point was the rarest. When Genius had become a fantasy breed, it had transformed into the interconnection beast and created the first 100 questions beast. The interconnection tail's power did not only lie in the exchange of knowledge. It mainly relied on Genius's photographic memory, which allowed it to gather all the world's knowledge into its mind. Without the third point, even if someone reached the first 2 points, Genius was the only one in the world. It was impossible to learn such comprehensive combat skills and movement techniques within half an hour of muscle transcending memory. After Lin Yuan's body exited muscle transcending memory, he suddenly felt that the entire world had changed. Due to the change in his body's ability, Lin Yuan felt that his body was dozens of times more agile than before. Lin Yuan immediately turned the amber button-shaped source sand into quicksand and let it throw the sand at him at a rate of 10 pieces per second. In the past, Lin Yuan would not have been able to dodge the sand grains thrown at such a frequency. Now, when he saw these sand grains, his body would subconsciously move. With a twist and turn, he elegantly dodged all the sand grains that were hurled at him. This feeling made Lin Yuan's heart feel carefree. This ability to react to attacks was exactly what Lin Yuan wanted. Although Lin Yuan's physical strength had not improved much, just the improvements in his combat skills and movement techniques were enough for him to use Spirit Purity Burst to execute perfect attacks. Even if Spirit Chi professionals were Emperor-class experts, they would still be the weakest link in the defense system. By relying on his combat skills, movement techniques, and Spirit Purity Burst, he had unknowingly made up for his shortcomings as a Spirit Chi professional. However, Lin Yuan was not satisfied with this. Lin Yuan first stored 100 golden lotus brocade stalks from the 120-plus pots of golden lotus brocade stalks that Jinsei had nurtured into the diamond Fei storage box. He then carried Genius toward the Radiant Moon Palace on the Leaning Moon Mountain. On the way to the Radiant Moon Palace, Lin Yuan contacted Duan He and arranged to meet him in a restaurant in the royal capital. Lin Yuan gave Duan He a bag of law crystals that he had prepared for endless summer and the phase that he had nurtured for the Indigo Azure Guards. If it had been in the past, Lin Yuan would have kept this batch of Indigo Azure City's goods for at least 2 months before handing it over to Duan He to prevent others from being surprised by the creation master resources he had. Now that Lin Yuan had decided to reveal his identity as the Moon Empress disciple, he would give 400 bronze/epic hot spring snails and 30 bronze/epic jasmine lilies to Duan He within an hour. Duan He would only be surprised and would not think too much. Lin Yuan knew that there was a combat readiness room in the Radiant Moon Palace's treasure vault, which stored a large number of concocted spirit liquids. There were nearly 10,000 bottles of each type of spirit liquids. Any random bottle of the lowest grade among these spirit liquids could create a bronze/epic Fey. Some of the Class 5 spirit liquids in the combat readiness room could even instantly create a bronze/legend Fey or allow a Diamond X/fantasy V Fey stuck at suzerain to welcome the world cleansing. After handing over the goods with Duan He, Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's node tentacles to teleport to the Radiant Moon Palace's entrance. When he arrived at the entrance, he happened to meet the Moon Empress. Mystic Moon and Cold Moon were walking out of the palace. Upon seeing them, Lin Yuan hurriedly greeted them. Cold Moon and Mystic Moon bowed slightly when they saw Lin Yuan and greeted him. "Greetings, young lord." Lin Yuan responded, "Uncle Mystic, Aunt Cold Moon." Lin Yuan did not expect Mystic Moon to return from the outer realms so soon. However, Lin Yuan felt that the mystic moon he saw this time was a little different from before. At this moment, Mystic Moon's body would inadvertently emit a trace of terrifying pressure. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, mention that Mystic Moon was a fae. It seemed that Mystic Moon had just advanced, and her body was not proficient in controlling the strength that had just increased. When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan, her face revealed a trace of a gentle smile. She took 2 steps forward and helped Lin Yuan tidy his collar. When she saw the flowing cloud beeswax pendant on Lin Yuan's neck, the Moon Empress' smile on her face became even wider. Cold Moon looked at Lin Yuan with a flash of astonishment in her eyes. The news of the Golden Lotus brocade appearing in the royal capital's Fae Observer Guild had already spread throughout the royal capital. It had even attracted the attention of the other 2 Class 5 creation masters, Chef Supreme and Bamboo Monarch. Just these few days alone, there were no less than 30 factions that had come to the Leaning Moon Mountain to visit the Moon Empress and request for a Golden Lotus brocade. Cold Moon knew that this commotion had nothing to do with the Moon Empress. It was all caused by Lin Yuan, the Radiant Moon Palace's young lord. This also meant that the Golden Lotus brocade, which was said to be able to change the structure of Creation Masters' factions, was the young lord's exclusive secret recipe. Cold Moon had always been certain of Lin Yuan's strength as a combat class spirit chi professional, but she did not expect Lin Yuan's strength as a Creation Master to have such a huge improvement in just half a year. Although Cold Moon had not personally seen the Golden Lotus brocade, she was not sure if it was as incredible as the rumors said. However, since so many factions had come to visit the Leaning Moon Mountain for the Golden Lotus brocade, it must be extraordinary. Such an item was not something that ordinary Creation Masters could nurture. The first was even more terrifying. End of this chapter. Chapter 809. At that moment, Cold Moon saw Lin Yuan pass a cloud-shaped diamond Fae storage box to the Moon Empress. This action slightly startled Songyu. Not only was Songyu stunned, but even the Moon Empress and Xianyu, who had just returned from the Outer Realm, were stunned. Mystic Moon, who had just returned to the Radiant Moon Palace, was puzzled. In the past, it was always the Moon Empress who thought of all sorts of ways to send gifts to the young lord. Since when did the young lord start to send gifts to the Moon Empress? The Moon Empress originally wanted to reject him subconsciously, but when she saw his solemn expression, she recalled how she had felt when he had rejected her gift. The Moon Empress reached out and received the cloud-shaped diamond Fae storage box. After receiving the cloud-shaped diamond Fae storage box, the Moon Empress immediately checked its contents. With one look, the Moon Empress was astonished at first, but she then revealed a smile. In the end, his smile turned into pride and amazement. The Moon Empress didn't expect that her disciple had actually grown to such an extent unknowingly. The Moon Empress, who was in the Diamond Fae storage box, immediately saw through it. It could be said that the Golden Lotus brocade stock that Lin Yuan had given the Moon Empress could be considered a precious treasure to her. At that moment, the Moon Empress had a subtle feeling in her heart. It was as if something that he had carefully nurtured and cared for had grown up and didn't need him as much anymore. The stubborn little fellow in front of her was actually able to repay her despite not accepting her help. This was the first time in the Moon Empress' life that such a feeling had occurred. Melancholy, pride. It was as if the torch of inheritance had been passed down from his hands. It was a feeling of passing on the torch. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan and smiled. Master likes the items in this Diamond Fae storage box very much. Master is going to Night Dawn Palace with Dark Moon and Cold Moon. Why don't you send me off and follow me to the Moon Stable? Mystic Moon and Cold Moon did not know what was in the Diamond Fae storage box that Lin Yuan had handed to the Moon Empress. However, when he heard that the Moon Empress wanted to bring Lin Yuan to the Moon Stable, his eyes immediately lit up. He knew that the Moon Empress was going to gift the Fae that she had meticulously prepared for the young lord's Fae carriage. When Mystic Moon recalled the Fae that the Moon Empress had prepared for Lin Yuan's Fae carriage, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. At that moment, Mystic Moon could not help but imagine how the Fae that the Moon Empress had prepared for Lin Yuan would look like when it pulled the chariot. Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Lin Yuan turned around and followed her. "Let's go, master. I'll send you off." He had always been unimpeded in the Radiant Moon Palace and could even freely enter and exit the Radiant Moon Palace's core moonlight corridor. The Moon Empress had also built a breeding room for him in the moonlight corridor. After the question-and-answer session with the Moon Empress, he would always go to the breeding room in the moonlight corridor to organize the knowledge he had learned. When Lin Yuan saw the Moon Empress's arrangement for him in the breeding room for the first time, he could not help but click his tongue. The walls of the entire breeding room were inlaid with large pieces of spirit-permeating wood. Even if a Class 4 creation master worked diligently day and night and accumulated resources for around 10 years, they would only be able to purchase a piece of spirit-permeating wood that was half the size of a fist. The spirit-permeating wood had great benefits for creation masters as it could purify spirit chi. However, a luxury like the spirit-permeating wood was of no use to Lin Yuan. Such an arrangement was enough to show the Moon Empress care for him. Lin Yuan was very familiar with the Radiant Moon Palace, but he had not strolled around the entire Leaning Moon Mountain forest. At most, he would walk from the Radiant Moon Palace to the pavilion where he usually lived or go to Chu Si's residence in the Radiant Moon Palace to look for her. The Moon Stable was where the Radiant Moon Palace stored the Fey carriages, and Lin Yuan had never been to such a place. However, after seeing Li Xian's Fey carriage and the Long family's patriarch's Long Tu's Fey carriage, Lin Yuan liked Fey carriages more and more. Lin Yuan was already thinking about what kind of Fey to prepare for his Fey carriage. However, the choice of Fey was not an easy matter. First, he had to consider the protective effect of the Fey carriage. In fact, it was the shielding effect of the Fey carriage's internal environment and the Fey's strength. Finally, he had to consider whether the Fey carriage could be eye-catching. There were so many points that he had to consider one by one, so Lin Yuan did not have a clue at the moment. Therefore, Lin Yuan was rather curious about the Fey carriage in the Leaning Moon Mountain's moon stable. He followed the Moon Empress all the way and looked at the scenery of the Leaning Moon Mountain and the precious Feys everywhere, making Lin Yuan feel very satisfied. It had been some time since the new year. It had turned warm and cold, and the season had turned from midwinter to early spring. In this early spring, the Leaning Moon Mountain was filled with the fragrance of sprouts, which made one feel as though their spirit was being comforted. When they arrived at the moon stable, Lin Yuan found two huge figures completely hidden under the moonlight robes standing at the entrance. These two huge figures were 3 meters tall. Just by looking at them, Lin Yuan could be sure that the people under the moonlight robes were not human spirit chi professionals. Instead, they were abnormally huge Feys that had taken human form. When the two huge figures saw the Moon Empress, they knelt on one knee and bowed to Lin Yuan. However, Lin Yuan keenly noticed that the two huge figures did not bow to Cold Moon and Mystic Moon. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard his master, the Moon Empress, speak. "Go and get Ling Hanyue's carriage out. This time, the two of you will follow me to Yang Palace." As the Moon Empress spoke, Lin Yuan felt a little strange. Fey carriages had always been pulled by Feys. But why did his master, the Moon Empress, let these two huge figures hidden under the moonlight robes pull the Fey carriage out? At the thought of this, Lin Yuan was alarmed, and he suddenly looked at the two massive figures kneeling on the ground. Lin Yuan saw the two huge figures raise their heads and let out a hissing sound similar to that of a snake Fey. However, these two hisses were different from the vicious and tyrannical hisses of ordinary snake Feys. These two snake-like hisses were filled with an indescribable immortal chi. When the two huge figures raised their heads and hissed, Lin Yuan realized that the figures hidden under the moon-colored robes actually had two beautiful and otherworldly faces. Immediately after, he saw one of the figures rush into the sky like a ball of blazing moonlight and turn into a giant white snake that stretched for nearly 1,000 meters. Another figure followed closely behind, turning into a giant green snake that stretched for nearly 1,000 meters in the sky. Lin Yuan's pupils constricted, and he subconsciously used Morbius True data to check the white and green giant snakes. Yesterday's second night watch. The third night watch will be very late. Everyone, sleep early. Today's modification is a little late. End of this chapter. Chapter 8:10. At a glance, he realized that when he used true data to check on the white and green giant snakes, he had already noticed that they were true data. When he had just contracted Morbius, he had checked on Auntie Zhang's dying fantasy breed terror rabbit. He could not see their data at all. The only thing he could see was that they had 3 exclusive skills. This made Lin Yuan understand that the 2 giant snakes, which were thousands of meters long, were 2 creation breed phase. Immediately after, he saw 2 energy chains extend from the 2 giant snakes' heads. The 2 chains opened the door of the moon stable with the force of a thunderbolt. The green and white energy chains entered the moon stable and shook. A tower-shaped building engraved with moon totems was dragged out of the moon stable. The tower-shaped building was engraved with moon totems, and the moon totems were embedded with a large number of moonlight stones. The entire tower-shaped building was like a place of frost that pierced through the vast sky above the 9 heavens. After the tower-shaped building was thrown high into the sky by the green and white energy chains, the green and white giant snakes surged with energy. A long dorsal fin suddenly appeared on the snake's smooth spine, followed by 2 pairs of huge wings. The wings were translucent like the fins of a fish, and when they flapped, the sky seemed to tilt. When Lin Yuan saw the fin-shaped wings on the 2 giant snakes, he immediately knew that these 2 creation breeds had the soaring serpent bloodline. The soaring serpent bloodline was the apex of a branch of the snake species Fey bloodline. In terms of bloodline nobility, the soaring serpent bloodline was comparable to the top few bloodlines that were main dragon species and main phoenix species Feys. In terms of bloodline, it would crush most of the main dragon species Feys and main phoenix species Feys. Lin Yuan saw the back half of the green and white snakes, which were 1,000 meters long, coiled with each other. As they coiled, the snake body was like a base that firmly caught the moonlight pagoda connected to the green and white energy chain. The dorsal fins of the coiled snake body extended outwards, like a blooming 2-colored lotus throne. Looking at the Moon Empress Fey carriage, Lin Yuan had a new understanding of Fey carriages. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard his master, the Moon Empress, say to him, "This cold moon pagoda carriage is a Fey carriage that can represent the radiant moon palace. Disciple, if you want to represent the radiant moon palace in the future, just tell White Moon and Blue Moon. On the leaning moon mountain, you and I are no different." When Lin Yuan heard that, he immediately knew that his master, the Moon Empress, was referring to the fact that he could also drive the cold moon pagoda carriage. However, he really felt a little pressured to let 2 creation breed Feys pull his carriage. At that moment, the Moon Empress handed him a diamond Fey storage box. Lin Yuan hurriedly reached out and took the diamond Fey storage box. After receiving the Fey storage box, the Moon Empress spoke again. "When you don't wish to represent the radiant moon palace, you will need your own Fey carriage. See if the Fey in this Fey storage box can be used to pull your Fey carriage." Just as Lin Yuan was about to check the items in the diamond Fey storage box, he heard the Moon Empress chuckle and say softly, "Don't worry. Summon the items in the diamond Fey storage box." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan didn't use his spiritual energy to check the items in the diamond Fey storage box. Instead, he summoned the items in the diamond Fey storage box. Immediately after, 12 fist-sized water balls hovered beside Lin Yuan. Upon seeing these 12 fist-sized water balls, Lin Yuan couldn't help but be a little surprised. When Mystic Moon saw the 12 water balls that Lin Yuan summoned, her eyes immediately widened. It could be said that the Moon Empress had prepared Feys for Lin Yuan to pull the carriage because Mystic Moon had informed her. The Moon Empress wanted to prepare a lot of things for Lin Yuan. If Mystic Moon hadn't mentioned the Fey carriage, the Moon Empress would probably have wanted to add some life-saving trump cards for Lin Yuan and not these Feys that could pull the carriage. However, what puzzled Mystic Moon was that the items that the Moon Empress was giving Lin Yuan were not the Feys that she had prepared to pull the carriage. When Mystic Moon took a closer look at these 12 water balls, her eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Mystic Moon never expected that the Moon Empress would actually give something like the Source Movement Water to Lin Yuan. When Lin Yuan saw these 12 water balls, the Moon Empress, who was enjoying the sacred source crystal in the Spirit Lock spatial zone, suddenly became restless. Her restlessness was far greater than when Lin Yuan had just obtained the Law Source Crystal. It was just like Red Thorn's restlessness when it had discovered the Source Seed. But soon, Lin Yuan couldn't help but twitch his mouth. The Moon Empress was so restless because she was coveting these 12 water balls. According to the Moon Empress feedback, Lin Yuan knew that these 12 water balls didn't have the same function as the Source Seed, which could transform Red Thorn. However, compared to the Law Source Crystal, these 12 water balls could allow the Moon Empress to grow faster. After absorbing these 12 water balls, the Moon Empress might even transform from the infancy stage to the growth stage. Her Moon Empress form and Sacred Sword form would unlock the second function together. At the same time, Lin Yuan knew what these 12 water balls were based on his communication with the Moon Empress. However, it was also because of Lin Yuan that he knew what these 12 water masses were, even though they could greatly increase the princess's star class. Lin Yuan would never leave these 12 water balls for the princess to harm. Just as Lin Yuan was surprised by the origin of these 12 water masses, the Moon Empress said, "That's right. When the Sacred Source life form reaches the 7-star stage, even if the contractor dies, as long as the Sacred Source life form and the contractor did not form a marrow contract, the Sacred Source life form will still be able to survive. Sacred Source life forms can survive by returning to their infancy stage through star fall. After killing a Sacred Source life form that has escaped its contractor, the Sacred Source life form will usually retain some of its own functions and laws. You already know that a Sacred Source life form's shell can be made into a treasure in the hands of a Class 5 Creation Master. Actually, after a Sacred Source life form dies, it can use a law crystal that contains pure power of the law as a medium to induce a portion of the Sacred Source life form's laws and functions for nurturing. The 12 blobs of water in front of you are a Sacred Source life form contracted by a member of the Freedom Federation. Back then, this person's Sacred Source life form reached 9 stars and was one step away from reaching its complete form. It's just that this person and the Sacred Source life form are at odds because they haven't formed a marrow contract. That's why they have been unable to work together, to allow the Sacred Source life form to advance toward its complete form. Back then, I used the totem moon to sublimate that person, and I killed the Sacred Source life form after it escaped. These 12 water balls were nurtured by extracting the laws and functions from that person's Sacred Source life form, the Origin Water. Cold Moon and Mystic Moon took a deep breath. They did not expect the Moon Empress to mention the incident from 10 years ago to the young lord at this time. Yesterday's third night. End of this chapter. Chapter 8:11. Since the Moon Empress was willing to mention this matter, it meant that the Moon Empress had truly let go of this matter. Lin Yuan's eyes widened in shock when he heard the Moon Empress words. It was already extremely difficult for Her Highness to evolve from 1 star to 2 star. It was as though she had consumed so many law crystals for nothing. Although he didn't know how the Sacred Source lifeform's star level increased, it shouldn't be easy for Sacred Source lifeforms to increase their star level. According to Her Highness' senses, these 12 water masses were filled with a special water elemental energy. The Sacred Source lifeform, Origin Moving Water, should be a water elemental Sacred Source life form. However, Lin Yuan was a little confused. Wasn't the Moon Empress a fae that pulled a carriage? What was the use of giving me 12 water masses? At present, Lin Yuan's True Data could not examine these 12 water masses. Under True Data's examination, the 12 water masses' names were Origin Moving Water Remnant Bodies and not living faes. Suddenly, Lin Yuan felt the Moon Empress aura change. She took out 12 blue crystals and threw them into the 12 water masses. Then Lin Yuan was surprised to find that these 12 water masses had complete attributes under True Data. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan's expression as he looked at the 12 water masses and explained softly, "Disciple, you have already contracted a Sacred Source life form. Disciple, you have already formed a contract with a Sacred Source life form. This kind of fae cultivated from the remnants of a Sacred Source life form requires the Sacred Source life form that you have formed a marrow contract with through your soul. No matter how you nurture these 12 water masses in the future, they will be useful to you. Lin Yuan was already looking at the 12 water masses under true data, and his heart was thumping violently. These 12 blobs of water had boundless potential, and there were many ways to cultivate them. After being nurtured, it could be used as a supreme weapon or as a heavy shield. However, Lin Yuan could also nurture these 12 water masses with strategic significance. He looked at the Moon Empress eyes. Lin Yuan stored the 12 water masses into the diamond Fei storage box and wore the ring-shaped diamond Fei storage box on his finger. At that moment, Mystic Moon, who was standing at the side, suddenly saw the Moon Empress give him a look. Moon Empress, Feis nurtured with origin movement water are not suitable for pulling Fei carriages, the Moon Empress said. Do you think you should prepare a few Feis suitable for pulling the Fei carriage for His Highness? Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress hurriedly handed another platinum Fei storage box to Lin Yuan and gave Mystic Moon an appreciative look. Disciple, you don't have to worry about these 12 balls of source water. You can slowly cultivate them. However, these 12 balls of source moving water are really like Mystic Moon's. They are indeed not suitable for pulling the Fei carriage. Disciple, take a look at the Feis in this platinum Fei storage box. How about matching them with the comprehension carriage? Lin Yuan looked at the Moon Empress expression and immediately knew that she was thinking of ways to give him something. This time, Lin Yuan didn't hesitate and took it. Previously, Lin Yuan didn't want the Moon Empress items because he wanted to be firm on the path he wanted to take and didn't want to rely on the Moon Empress too much. It wasn't that he couldn't accept the Moon Empress things. Now that Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath had become creation breeds in Lin Yuan's private faction, it was a done deal. He had also given the Moon Empress an answer through the Golden Lotus brocade plant. Lin Yuan, who was firm on his path, no longer refused to accept the Moon Empress items because he believed that one day, he would be able to help his master, the Moon Empress, just like how the Moon Empress had nurtured him. Seeing that Lin Yuan didn't return the items after accepting one item like before, the Moon Empress expression immediately softened. The Moon Empress expression, which had turned slightly cold due to mentioning the past, immediately softened. He looked at the Fei storage box in Platinum's hand and found that there were 12 Diamond X/Fantasy V fragrant mices in it. This made Lin Yuan subconsciously wonder if the butterfly pulling the carriage was too eye-catching. However, Lin Yuan immediately realized that he was thinking too much. Even if the fragrance plugs reached Diamond X/Fantasy V, they were still palm-sized. How could they pull the carriage? Really, the fragrance plugs were good stuff. If Lin Yuan were to nurture them himself, he wouldn't be able to do so no matter what. If he wanted to nurture the fragrance plugs, he would need to let the fragrance plugs devour a large amount of soul-type spiritual ingredients when they were still caterpillars. This would strengthen the fragrance plug's soul as a soul-type Fei. After devouring a large amount of soul-type spiritual ingredients to form a cocoon, the fragrance plugs would need to develop in an environment with extremely rich spirit qi. Lin Yuan could easily do the second point and could even do it better. However, the first point left Lin Yuan in the dust. The only soul-type spiritual ingredient Lin Yuan currently had was the cold snow pine incense, which was calcined from cold snow pine branches. Lin Yuan had a lot of cold snow pine incense, but it wasn't enough for the 12 fragrance plugs caterpillars. This showed how many soul-type spiritual ingredients the Moon Empress had used to nurture these 12 fragrance plugs. Even a little bit of soul-type spiritual ingredients was priceless. The fragrance plugs ranked second among all butterfly species Feis in terms of appearance, second only to the blue light goddess butterfly, which had evolved from the blue flash butterfly. Like the blue light goddess butterfly, the fragrance plugs weren't good at attacking. However, the fragrance plugs were very good at releasing cherry petal-like scale powder to carry out a comprehensive information blockade within the range of the scale powder. At the same time, unlike the blue light goddess butterfly that relied on its appearance, the fragrance plugs had the innate ability of soul detention as a soul-type Fei. The fragrance plugs could detain Feis with lower soul strength. The stronger the Fei's soul strength, the shorter the fragrance plug's soul detention time. During the process of soul detention, the fragrance plugs could control the detained Fei's body at will, but once the time was over, the Fae would be out of the fragrance plug's control. The Fae that was controlled by the fragrance plugs would have a strong resistance to the fragrance plug's soul detention, making it difficult for the fragrance plugs to control a target twice. However, the fragrance plug's soul detention had a special feature. It could permanently detain insects with lower soul strength. The insects that were permanently detained by the fragrance plugs would be like subjects that surrendered to Mei Rao's skirt and willingly offered themselves. If the fragrance plug's soul strength became stronger, the fragrance plugs would have better choices. It could order the poor insects that were previously detained to commit suicide, thereby removing the target of the soul detention and controlling other insects. At that thought, Lin Yuan immediately made a decision. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.